Welcome to Level Sync, a Final Fantasy XI podcast with your hosts, DA Soccer, Caladrius, Lost Time Lord, and Quetch.
Hello and welcome to episode 14 of Level Sync, a Final Fantasy XI Horizon podcast. The normal crew is here. We got a wonderful treat for you guys today. A little bit of a long episode, but we have not just one, not two, but three guests that are going to be on. They're going to be following up right after we get to what we've been up to. But let me introduce our wonderful hosts. Myself, DA, but we have good old Icy Caladrius, the wonderful Paladin, / now I'm a bard.
/ now I'm a warrior.
Yeah. / now he's a warrior, yeah.
I'm just following my footsteps now. I'll give you my trash gear.
Yeah, but he's actually
yeah, I know.
good.
He's geared. He's
good.
geared. Shut up.
He's good.
Does he use macros? That's my question.
Yeah, he does.
And Lua's.
He has a Lua, yeah.
Gentlemen, already trashing me. We're 30 seconds in. Next up, we have our Lost Time Lord, future best black, I was going to say black mage, blue mage.
I'm leveling black mage right now, actually. So yeah, future best black mage too.
Foresight on that.
Yeah.
You're fucking 10 play, bud.
Yeah, fucking 10 play.
And lastly, the future Dragoon. I don't know how that's going. Hopefully we can get caught up on that as well. Our wonderful former thief on here, Quetch.
What's up, y'all?
Awesome. So again, long broadcast we have today. It's going to be a wonderful lot of insight on here. But first off, Quetch, what have you been up to?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Dragoon. I actually, so it took me a couple weeks, but I got my Samurai sub up to 37. So, yeah. So basically, I was kind of dreading it because, like, there's a few, like, DD jobs in the game I just don't have any interest in, and Samurai is one of them. Like, I know a lot of people love it, but I don't know, just the whole, like, job fantasy of it doesn't really appeal to me. So it kind of took me a while, but I didn't want to touch Dragoon again until Samurai was 37, so I could just, get rid of that gear. But yeah, I basically got it to 35, and then yesterday's Eco Warrior kicked me up to 37. You guys been using your Eco Warrior on your low level jobs, or how have you guys been using your Eco Warrior? I'm actually curious how other people are using it.
Oh, I got my Ninja to 37, my Red Mage to 37. I've been using it on my Black Mage, which I just mentioned that I've been leveling. I haven't done it this week yet, but yeah, I've been using it to level basically just my subs to make sure they're ready. Next one will be Thief. I use it on my Warrior for a little bit because I want to have Warrior and Thief, and I've already got my Red Mage leveled up for when Blue Mage comes out.
That's how this Galco levels White Mage. All right.
Purely with Eco Warrior?
Yes, purely with Eco Warrior. I have not touched that job, and it's 30 as of tonight.
Yeah, I'll get to mine in a minute because Eco Warrior is a made part of what I want to discuss about what I've been doing on there. But no, Eco Warrior is a must, and I recommend end of the week or beginning of the week. During the meat part of the week, it seems pretty quiet for people shouting for it, but people trying to be like, oh shit, we need to do it. And the people that are like, it just opened back up, let's get a free XP. Yeah. So it's usually right around that Sunday, day before, day after, usually easy invites. Just walk in, turn your flag up.
Well, uninvited guests that Cal and I have been doing every week is pretty good too, because while it's not guaranteed that you get an XP scroll, is a pretty better than average chance that you'll get an XP scroll. We did it yesterday, right, Cal? And I was able to use it on my Black Mage, and I got close to 3k XP, and Cal used it, and he got over 3k XP. So it's another nice little thing. And if it's just you and one other person going and doing that, I mean, how long did it take us yesterday? 45 seconds to kill the mammoth?
Yeah, about that.
It's one of the easiest fucking ENMs there is. And all it requires is just getting the key item from Justinius in Tavnasia. The hardest part is, and it's not even hard, but you have to farm up those giant scales. You need to have some giant scales to get through the portals in Reverne B. But the hardest part is getting, and like I said, it's not even hard, but getting through Reverne B to the Monarch Lyn BC. And then once you're there, the fight is just, if it's just two people, it's a single mammoth. And with me being on Summoner and Cal being on literally anything, we found out that yesterday even his 67 Warrior was helpful. I just send in Ifrit or Ramu, and they tank. He does damage, and it dies within like 30 seconds. Just go back to Justinius, turn it in. You have a chance for an assault breastplate, which is a very low chance, which sells for a lot, million or millions. I don't even know. I've not seen one for sale for a long time. But like I said, you have a pretty decent chance at getting an XP scroll. So you should look into doing that every week if you're not already doing it.
Have you guys been doing Revern War along with that?
No, I feel like an idiot because there's the one where you can just pick up the thing right outside of the Monarch Lin thing and you get that done too.
It's a free,
I know,
it's
I'm
a
an
free
idiot.
EXP scroll every single time you go to uninvited guests.
Yeah, I'm an idiot for not doing it. We'll have
Yeah.
it ready for next week.
Oh wow.
But
What else?
Go ahead, yeah.
I was gonna say, what else you got on the plate question? Because it sounds like I'm missing out on some XP. I haven't done an uninvited guest yet, but I love your guys' insight on that.
I wonder where you need to be to do uninvited guests in COP.
Oh, don't rub it in. Shut the fuck up.
It is a COP locked thing. I just don't remember how far along you have to be.
My
Probably
COP
have to
static
be-
starts Friday.
Oh, nice.
Sick.
I think you probably have to be past the Revern Site B part of COP, I think.
Yeah, and
Because there's that fight
Yeah.
in there.
the Mammoth
I
fight.
think once you're past, I think once you're past the mammoths, that unlocks. I think.
Probably.
Don't quote me on
Yeah.
that, but I think.
Let us know in the comments below.
Logic.
Yeah, let us know.
But yeah, so I finished Samurai, so I finally took Dragoon out. It had been sitting at 63 for a bit because I'm like 63 is like the prime, the prime like Sky EXP time.
Burns.
Yeah, and so I went out there on 63 Dragoon / Sam, and I'll tell you, it feels so snappy having Hasso and Meditate. It just like two-handed DDs with that sub job, man. It just feels like a breeze. You're just always weapon skilling when you want to. You're attacking nice and fast from Hasso. It just felt really good. I will say I would probably go /Nin or /Thief to the next one because I was just taking hate too often for my cooldowns on high jump and super jump. And it's just like it was pushing out nice damage. But man, we had a Taru summoner main healer. It was like a summoner, bard, paladin, and 2 dragoons and a beast. And like that Taru, man, they were just curing nonstop for the entire like hour and a half we were out there EXPing, and I'm just like, I could mitigate a little bit of damage here, help this guy out.
That's what Cal and I were talking about a few episodes ago, where he just goes out there. All the paladin is first folk and an extra heal.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
so yeah, just I mean that's basically the gist of what I've been up to, other than like endgame stuff and whatnot.
Anything spectacular in game?
Our LS killed our second Tiamat.
Okay, that's noteworthy, man.
Hey.
I haven't killed a single god like that. So I mean, or what is it, H&M? So no, that's good.
I mean,
You get anything good out of it?
No.
He's like, that's why it wasn't noteworthy.
two kills, no Herald's Gators. We did get the Noritsune Kote. It's like accuracy +10 in the hand slot for like Monk, Nin, Sam. But I didn't look too specifically into it, but I'm pretty sure that's not a good piece. Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. So
when we were killing it, it was like our giveaway piece. It was like, oh, do you want it? Okay, whatever. Nobody really wants that. The only reason you kill fucking Tiamat is for those booties.
Yeah, and we're 0-2, so maybe one day.
When you guys gonna put in your actual work and kill Jormy?
I'd like to. We have a number of dragoons in the LS now, so it'd be a thing. I'd like to try it because that zone's a little bit harder. You've got all those ads to deal with.
Yep, you kind of need an ad alliance.
Yeah, and we had the numbers. So for Tiamat, so we had basically, I don't know, 12 in the outside alliance, probably more like 14. So I think we'd have a better shot at it than our first time.
Awesome. Look forward to it. I think especially you'll bring that up when you get that kill, your first Jormy. You're gonna make that known. So I'm looking forward to
100%.
that. Speaking of H&Ms, Lost Time Lord, what you been up to?
Not H&Ms.
What? Okay, what you been up to?
I haven't been doing H&Ms for a while. I've been sick, as you can hear from my voice. Went to Seattle last week, and I don't like to talk about things outside of Final Fantasy XI on this podcast, but fuck SeaTac Airport. Worst airport in the nation. Absolutely horrible. Anyways, what I've been up to is leveling my Black Mage now. I'm at 30 something. I don't even remember. That and doing lots of Limbus every week. and obviously the Dynamis stuff. Nothing really too exciting outside of those things. Trying to work on the H&M scene. Got a little thing brewing, but we'll see how that goes.
Okay. So it's just in the oven right now. Nothing's come out.
We got something baking.
Okay. A little bun in the oven. Speaking of bun in the oven, Icy, what you been up to?
First of all, fuck you. Secondly, I leveled War from 37 to 67 in 3 days.
Damn, dude.
God.
So that's been fun. I'm enjoying it. I don't have any job that actually does damage. I'm a paladin and a bard, so
Were you like in
It's
a
been
static, or was that all just
enjoy-
LFP?
no, we had a static for a couple of times, but most
Okay.
of it was just LFP. Like, it's fun. I like it. I did Divine Might finally. That was fun. Got my earring, and just Dyna and Eco Warrior, and I joined a Limbus static. So that's been fun too. Been doing that on Sundays. So haven't been
Kel
up to
got his
much.
first Omega kill the other day.
Yeah,
Or
we killed Omega
Omega.
last Sunday.
Awesome.
Is that 10
Progress.
a.m. thing you guys were talking about?
Yeah.
10 a.m. on Sunday?
Well, 10 for him, 9 for me. But yeah.
That's dedication.
That's Red Bull and nicotine is what that is.
And running with our friends who are European. That's what that is.
Ah, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, keep up the progress. You said Divine Might. You got your earring. Which earring did you get?
I took the Great X, the war earring. What is it? The Bushin no Mimi? Is that it?
I think so.
I think so.
I don't remember
Bushi.
which one it is.
Bushi is that one. The Supa is the one with great katana.
Yeah.
Right? Used to have sword on it, but it doesn't.
Katana, Dagger, Evasion, I think, is on it right now.
This is why we lost
Yeah.
Jeopardy, guys.
Bushi is the one that has GKT, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah, that's it. There's the Supa, Busho, Beastly,
Nightly?
I think the Night Earring is what I don't remember, but yeah,
The oft forgotten earring, whatever the fourth one
right. Yeah, I
Oh, yeah,
took the
I did that.
took the Beastly one when I chose mine because it's got the pet accuracy.
For myself, I've been working on sub jobs. I got my white mage from 17 to 36, and the party disbanded 2K from 37. So that's going to be Eco Warrior. I've been living off Eco Warrior. In fact, living off of it, my Black Mage went from 17 to 32 just on Eco Warrior over the past couple months. Just constantly running it. Now I'm like, okay, let me get. I wanted to get it to the part where I can join a burn party because I've always heard good things about them, and I've never done a burn party. So today I was like, let me go ahead and hop on it. I got it to like 36 in just a regular party and was practicing magic bursting, and I had my magic burst list up beside me so I could practice since I've never been a black mage. I got the tank, the paladin, I've got the warrior, DPS, and now I wanted a caster. The only thing I wanted to take black mage up, but Summoner's teasing me. I'm not going to do red mage. I need to get it to 37. My white mage needs to get to 37, but it's either going to be summoner or black mage to 75. I'm leaning towards black right now, but we'll see. But Paladin is now 75 officially. Cal gave me his hand-me-down gear. I look like an actual tank. I did get the knowing hands. They're pronounced knowing. I'm going to ask so many pronunciations on this now.
Koenig.
Got me all. Oinig?
Koenig?
Koenig.
Koenig.
Sure, those hands. I got those hands.
We all three gave different.
Yeah, I know.
me,
I'm just going to nod and be like, yeah, those. Yeah.
Mine's right. It's Koenig. Trust me.
So I got those. Haven't done any events on my Paladin just yet. My COP static starts as of Friday. I'm going to be missing. I did get my Luciding Glacier Dynamis win. I'm going to be skipping my first Zarkabard just to be able to start the COP because I'm tired of being harassed when I come on this podcast.
So, DA, I'm not going to further harass you. Actually, going to give you some advice.
Yes, sir.
As someone who's been leveling Black Mage as well, and this helps even if you're not Black Mage, but if you're just doing it, like if you're just like skill chaining,
Okay.
the Chains add-on, which was created by Nerf, who's in Cat Cafe and a couple of other people, is an amazing add-on. So what it does is, and it's approved, you can use it in Horizon.
Mm-hmm.
What it does is it puts a little box on your screen. And when somebody uses a weapon skill, the little box pops up and it shows you what weapon skill was used, the timer on how long you have until the weapon skill or the skill chain opportunity closes. And based on what weapon you have equipped, it shows you what weapon skills you can use and what skill chain it will create. But the reason why I'm telling you, because you're as a black mage,
Mm-hmm.
once the second one gets used and they actually make a skill chain, it shows you what skill chain has been used, gives you a countdown timer for black mage to start casting your spell, and then tells you which spells like you can cast to get a skill chain or a magic burst rather.
That sounds absolutely amazing. I
It
can
is.
definitely use that. My last question though is it on Windowware?
Oh, right, you use Windowware. I don't know if I don't know, but I'm sure
I'm-
Windowware has one.
There is
I'm
one for
debating-
Windowware. I used to use it. I'm not sure how the approved add-ons, if there's an approved add-on section for Windowware on the Horizon website, but that does exist if you want it.
I'm thinking about teetering back into Ashita, mainly because there's 2 spots in Sky and 1 spot in the jungle that if I go near, I have a 50% chance of just hard locking and DCing and my window closes because my HD pack.
And also Mordian.
Yeah, you can't go to jail.
That's true. That's the only reason I keep it. But anything else anybody else has to be able to throw in for what we've been up to? All right. Well, let's get on over to the podcast episode of the 3 guests we have on here. It's going to be, like I said, a nice thick one, and it's going to be, I would say, very detail oriented. It's for all the people that would like the back end kind of stuff. We've been asking questions in our Discord for certain reasons, aka we've been using those questions to be able to ask and influence the developers and some of the people we're going to be talking to here in a few moments. But I thank you for coming out, and please enjoy this episode.
This one's going to be a lot of fun, guys. Make sure you stick around and check it out. Thank you so much.
Hello and welcome to our wonderful broadcast with 3 backend coders here. And I want to be able to kind of point specifically each one of them out and what they are up to on this, or what they do in the Final Fantasy Horizon community. We have Damarus.
Going on?
We have Hookstar.
Yes, sir.
And we got Shozokui. Did I say that right?
Well, we can just cut it to Shozo. Like that,
Shozo.
we'll leave it there.
I'm horrible
But
at
yeah,
names.
what's up? We're good.
Perfect. We have if you were in our Horizon actual level sync Discord, we've been asking for a week or 2 now for community questions or anything for these 3 specific guys. But we're gonna have a good time finding out the kind of the background, what they've been working on, and what maybe some things that are coming down the pipes. But the typical question we always ask anybody that's coming on for an interview, and we got to start it off that way, is how did you get started with coding for 11 on the private server, as well as your history with Final Fantasy 11? So let's just start with Damarus.
All right. So I started. Oh, sorry. I've been playing Final Fantasy 11 since not long after the North America release. So I started way back in whenever COP era. Played non-stop right up until Abyssy, so which was sort of what a lot of us consider the downfall past the 75 era, right? So, but as far as coding, I only got into playing private servers just over a year and a half ago now. I started on Wings, and I got into coding because of one of our staff, Critical, who's now left the team. But she had a live stream going one night where she was fixing a bunch of bugs in rapid succession, and I started watching it, and I ran into a couple of problems, and I'll tell you specifically, Diabolos fight, the nightmare. The Waking Dreams and whatever the one for the cop mission is. Realizing things like the floor tiles not falling away was irritating the snot out of me. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to fix this. And that's where I started. A little bit of database fixes, followed by some minor Lua changes, and eventually having to recode everything so that Nightmare would actually work properly with Diabolos. And that's what got me started. And here I am now.
Awesome. Thank you for fixing that before I even make it to it in COP. I appreciate that.
Fully welcome. It's hard as hell now.
Perfect. What about you, Hookstar?
Hey, what's going on, guys? So like Damarus said, I started shortly after the NA launch. I was actually late to all the Final Fantasy games. At the time, I just joined the army and I was in Afghanistan when it came out. And one of my buddies was like, dude, you got to get on Final Fantasy X for PlayStation 2. And I was like, what's this garbage? I've been playing like Red Alert 2 was my jam, and Counter-Strike, like the old Counter-Strike, not the CSGO or anything like that. Yeah, none of that. This was like the old school, like World OGL. We were ranked second in the world. My clan was for a while, so that was like my bread and butter. And I was like, man, I want to play this, right? And he's like, dude, just give it an hour or two. So I was like, all right. So I played 10 and was like, oh my God, this storyline is amazing, right? So that kind of got me into the Final Fantasy realm, right? And then, of course, if you remember the PlayStation 2, when you bought it, it came with the hard drive, right? So I was actually in Afghanistan and I bought it, and my wife shipped it to me, not realizing that it was an online game, right? And obviously, we didn't have internet in Afghanistan, right? So I was about 6 months or so behind, So anyway, so I started playing, immediately got hooked. I mean, I remember having flat screens weren't really a thing then, right? So I had this big TV and my PlayStation laid out on the floor, cords everywhere, and I'm sitting there on my couch playing it, or whatever. And I just turned 21, so I started drinking some beers, and whatever, right? And just, 2-3 o'clock in the morning all the time, right? Up until about Abyssia, right? So started working through that, and then, life happened, had a couple kids, things like that, so it kind of like around 2009 or so, and I became a drill sergeant really is when I couldn't play anymore because I was at work at 3 a.m. and getting home at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m., So it took a few year hiatus, got back on here and there occasionally, and then in 2015, 14, somewhere around there, I saw like on YouTube one day, I was like watching like old Avesta videos, right? Because that was my jam, right? Like he's the reason I chose Red Mage, he or she, whoever it was.
Greatest Red Mage, right?
Oh my God, it was incredible, the stuff that dude was able to do, right? So I got back on, got Red Mage, leveled whatever, and anyway, so I digress. So I was looking around on YouTube one night and I saw Project XI and I was like, what is this? Like, and this dude is just whapping Fafnir. Granted, it was for one hit, right? Or one damage, right? But I was like, oh, it's possible. Started looking around, found what used to be Darkstar Project, right? DSP. And then found some servers, saw their, some private servers. I was like, cool, because I was broke. Bud Light and ramen noodle broke. Like
21-year-old broke.
Yeah. Well, no, I was probably 27, 28, but had just gone through a divorce and all that stuff, right? So anyway, we won't go into that, right? But so I was like, oh, I can do this for free, cool, right? So I hopped on a server, and then there was just obviously a ton of stuff broke. Just 2016 was, it was the Wild West, right? And just jumping through things and cheese and things, and I was just like, and then so I started asking questions like, hey, what is this, what is, how does this work, and you have to do this. And then one of my things that I remember telling the server owner at the time was like, hey, you have a lot of things that are not being used. It was a 75 cap thing. I was like, you have a ton of stuff, what about if we make this huge quest line for mythics, is what it was, right? And but it was, anyway, it was just a long thing. You had to do all the kings, and it's just like this crazy quest, right? So that's really how I started in on it. And then I had a little fun server for myself and a couple friends or whatever, and then been on the private scene for, I don't know, since then, right? Just back and forth. And then I guess last October I was again laying in bed watching YouTube videos about Final Fantasy 11, right? Quetch come up every now and then, I'd see his shorts and things like that, and I'm like, all right, cool, and anyway, I saw the Horizon XI thing and I was like, oh, let me go look at this. I pulled phone out and I'm like, anyway, so I reached out to the team or whatever and was like, hey, here's what I've done before. I am by no means an expert at this. Today I asked a pretty dumb question, like, I don't know if you saw it, Damarus, and it was, man, I don't know if it's these I don't know if it was these kids that, so I teach middle school now, since I retired from the Army. So I don't know if these kids are making me go dumb, right? But I asked the dumbest question possible today and felt like an idiot. But anyway, so not nearly as good as both of these gentlemen on here with me, but both these guys are invaluable to the team, not only by their leadership and guidance, but their technical skills as well. So still learning a lot from everybody. Just grateful to be here. And you guys are doing awesome work. It really validates, our work for you guys to be able to come out here and, have an hour and a half, 2 hour podcast with folks. It's absolutely amazing.
Awesome.
We
Don't feel
are
bad.
pretty amazing. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. That's going to be a tradition on here where we all take a drink at the same time.
Yeah.
Started.
I hung up my drinking shoes a little while ago. So, but
As did I, but I got a Diet Pepsi right here.
I got a bottle of water.
I got
Nobody said it had to be alcohol.
I got a strawberry dreams ultra monster. I think you're okay.
I mean,
got some
it's
water.
a beer, it's cider, but you know what? I'll take it.
You got a
I've got
Viking up here.
I've got
Cheers.
a fat tire, so cheers.
But I need a Viking horn.
Yeah.
we just went to the Renaissance Festival in Maryland this past weekend. Amazing.
I haven't been to one of those in a decade.
Oh, they're so much fun.
All right, we got one more here. It looks like he's posting up and chilling on the beach. Shozu, talk to us. Give us a little background. Who are you? Where'd you come from? What do you do?
Who's your daddy?
It's Shozo. It's. I'm gonna have to keep
Shozo.
reminding Da.
Please, that's why I call Cat instead of Ayame, because I fuck up her name all the time.
Yeah, so I had started playing the game after release. My buddy and I think I'm one of the youngest people here, maybe besides Quetch. I think Quetch and I are the same age, but I started in early 2005, just before Treasures released, and I was living large on the 56K modem all the way up until 2008. The crux of living out in the sticks. But yeah, I made the great decision of making Dragoon my first 75. So it took me 2 years.
Same.
But
Al feels that.
but yeah, sometime around 2010, 2011, I ended up, because I was already real big into the WoW private server scene. Like I was working on scripts and AI stuff. Mangos was still pretty bad back then, so most of the work was figuring out how we make things not fall through the maps. But from there, a natural progression was like, okay, what's going on with the Final Fantasy XI private server scene? And at the time, Hook kind of alluded to this already. Project XI was going on, and yeah, I was a big follower then. I coded up some of the early scripts for Dragon Quest naturally, because why not? And then from there, I pretty much quit until 2013 when my server got merged into Cerberus, and Abyssea wasn't it for me. So I waited all the way until 2017 to come back, and then from that point, myself and a good friend built up a link shell together, and we kind of did all of the modern content within the game. So really that's about it as far as that goes. But how I actually got involved in Horizon was a buddy of mine from that link shell sent me some information. He's like, let's check this out, it's gonna be great. But I had been following kind of the development for a while, so it's like, I don't know, maybe you should not be so expecting. But they got frustrated, so I was like, okay, let's get involved. Let's make some fixes, see if everybody can be happy.
All hands on, right?
Yeah.
And can I add, when he put his application in as a dev, it was the first time, because I managed a lot of the dev apps, it was the first time somebody had put an app in and wasn't just like, well, I need to start somewhere, I need to understand how quests work. It was, yeah, I have this really cool idea to fix pathfinding, and I'm looking at the app, and I'm going, this guy is way ahead of where we are. Like he's got, and we were actually dealing with a problem with pathfinding at the time, and we're like, just fucking make him a dev now.
Sounds like a
Damn.
great application. Do you mind
Yeah,
working on mine?
I fixed
You write resumes? There you go.
Well, you brought up pathfinding. I know we kind of got a little bit of a background from everybody. We did post in, again, the Discord about each one of your kind of topics that you've been working on lately. Speaking of pathfinding and the navigation process on here. Shozo, did I get it?
Yeah, you got it. You got
Look
it.
at Lost Time Lord. I'm horrible, dude. I'm horrible. Leave me alone.
How is this so hard for you? I don't get it.
It's
I'm
one of my things.
amazed that you say my name right. I know we've known each other for
Whole
7
syllables.
years.
No,
7
I say
years.
LTL. I don't say Lost Time Lord because
but
I'd
you
probably
still
say
say-
Lost Time God or something like
But
that.
Oh, that would be more accurate to the actual name.
Roommate isn't out yet. Shut up.
But I'm surprised that you can still say LTL correctly.
Yeah. So, speaking of pathfinding, a lot of changes have happened recently with the pathfinding that changes that occurred in 11. I know a lot of people ran into some issues maybe in Dynamis and maybe pulling in Romov. Is it I'm just going to worry about my pronunciations the entire time now.
Romave.
Romave. See?
Yeah.
Romave.
So I specifically I see it as it was kind of like anybody could pull anything from anywhere situation, and the seesaw kind of tipped a little bit to the other side where it's a little bit more difficult and some pulls are kind of problemsome. But is there more balance on that? It's kind of being adjusted, looked into. What's your thoughts on the development process of the pathfinding?
So it's a long and storied problem. I think there have been 5 or 6 people over the course of just private server development in general who have tried to iterate on the system and make it better. I guess some of the stuff you're alluding to here recently is actually a separate system called the line of sight system. When Horizon came online, you could pull through walls, no problem. We didn't have any way to check to make sure that you could actually see your target. So I think I had taken a break for a while to work on some other stuff, and then when I came back, another server, Eden, had put together this line of sight system, and our upstream repository, Landsand Boat, had adopted that in to their core logic. So it seemed like a good time to go ahead and pull that system in and start working on it before we get to like a major patch release. Because I mean, people have been doing Dynamis for a while, like pretty successfully. So there are a few hiccups now, but we're working it out. Anytime you adopt like a system or make any changes to things like pathfinding, the sheer scope of potential testing that you have to do to fully vet a system is just almost impossible to be done within an environment like ours. We can do 70-80% very thorough testing on some things, and then still when it hits live, here's 30 edge cases that we missed.
Yeah.
So what's
You want to see Shozo's blood pressure go up? You just mentioned the word packets.
Oh.
So are we? I want to get the official Horizon stance here, like from the devs. Are you satisfied with the way the line of sight stuff is working?
No, not at all.
Okay, because I was going to tell you, and I don't want to be a jerk.
It is significantly a problem at the moment.
It fucking sucks, real bad, real bad. And I'm not trying to be a dick. I love you guys, and you know that. But holy shit, at this point, I'm of the opinion that it might be better to revert that change until something better can be come up with. Because shit's broke. I'll let you speak. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of folks unhappy with that. I'm included.
Yeah,
You couldn't tell.
one of the particular areas that was that people are very unhappy with is Dynamis Juno. One of the problem, or well, one of many problems with it is that there's a bug in that system where the statue that's up on the up
Ledge
above,
in the
Oh
castle.
yeah,
yeah.
And he
can
pulls the
see
entire
you.
castle. Yeah, when you walk up the bridge. Yeah.
Oh, he can
I've
see
been there.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
Oh.
can
And he runs,
technically
and then he
see
runs
you.
back.
So
Then he runs back to
LTL's
grab
like,
all
oh
his
no, he
friends
can
on the
see
way
you.
out. Oh yeah, he sees you. And he
You
brings his
can
friends to
confirm.
play with you. Yeah.
and then it's just kind of a bum rush to see if you can handle the onslaught, which is both a little bit funny and not so great. But yeah, we actually have quite a few bug updates that are going to be rolling out within probably a week or two regarding that system. So you should see Dynamis Juno get quite a bit better. And then like some of the issues, like if you're out in the world, there are certain spots where you can also technically you're supposed to be able to see, but the mesh is a little bit off, so it technically collides, and then you get, okay, now I have to like move around a little bit to actually get a range attack to go or something. So there's a lot of those small things that need to be cleaned up as well.
So this next one's two-part a little bit. Sorry, I don't mean to like just bust in here, but this is a particular subject that really interests me. So kind of going back to what DA said, I know he mentioned Romave. My next point is twofold. So it involves pathing and line of sight. So like you guys are familiar with the Moongate camp, right? You guys obviously as devs
Yeah.
know what I'm talking about. Okay. So obviously, as you know, with the line of sight right now, like if I were to be standing where the mages typically stand, you guys know as soon as you walk in the door and you turn right before you go down the stairs, like the DDs are on the top of the stairs landing, and then the mages are around the corner by the door. So like, will the fix, and I mean obviously if you can't answer this, don't, but will the fix be so that like I can see across that gap because it makes sense in the real world that I'd be able to see across that gap? That's for question number one. And then question number two is then as you're pulling those mobs from the downstairs upstairs, and I know Cal lives this in his fucking nightmares, those things will drop all the way to the ground and come up and then drop all the way to the ground and come up as they try to go across that gap to the mage potentially, or even as they're coming upstairs, they're dropping down to hell and then coming back up through the floor. Are both of those things that like are being worked on or looked at?
So I'm going to talk a little bit of the technical pieces of that,
Sure.
and why you see that behavior. So first of all, the line of sight system and the navigation system alike, the meshes that get generated are exported from the client's collision data. So where your character can walk and fall down ledges and stuff, that's kind of the baseline of when we're trying to figure out whether you can see something or not. So the downside of this is that the client's collision meshes also sometimes have walls. Like you're mentioning a gap specifically, that gap likely has an invisible wall in the collision data, which would then prevent the line of sight. So when I was mentioning that there's a lot of things out in the world that we have to kind of manually clean up, that's the process that I'm alluding to.
Okay.
Like if you should be able to see across a gap like you would be able to on retail, then eventually it'll get taken care of.
Okay. Cool. I mean, obviously, because like at this point, before we have more camps to go to, like the Moongate camp is pretty much one of the only merit spots, right? When you're
Yeah.
at 75. So, I know a lot of people have seen it, so I hope that I'm speaking for a lot of people's concerns. But like, that's why I ask about that one.
Well, yeah, we can certainly take a note down here and look at that one specifically to help out. But that's kind of the explanation of why that happens, and this falls into the edge cases that I was talking about before. There are a lot of areas in the game, even with the limited set of content that we have available on Horizon. Like there are a lot of areas, a lot of little spots that can be problematic. And just moving on to the second part of that question, navigation. So why do things do that? Because it is not great. That problem has been the bane of my existence for the better part of 10, 12 months now.
Okay.
So I'll tell you why it happens. The client itself controls where entities are. So that means, let's say you're on retail and you're out in JM Woodlands or the Flow tickets. There's ledges you can fall down and stuff.
Mhm.
That detection is not actually done on the server side. Like the client completely says, okay, if you are above the collision mesh here, you will not fall. But since we do not have access to kind of the same types of pathing algorithms or how they set up they probably use an Octree navigation system, but I mean it's kind of hearsay. But if the server is even 0.0001 under what the client thinks an entity should be, it'll fall through the floor. So that's where the pathing rewrite and where that expanded into adding collision detection into the server side process and all that kind of stuff. So it's getting rather complicated, but we've been able to kind of fix a lot of that, but there's still just a little bit. The client's collision detection and how it determines whether things should drop or not is the bane of my existence, as I said.
Oh, thank you for that answer. That was very amazingly thorough. I appreciate that. Thank you. Seriously.
Right now, as a puller, it's like a bad movie of Trimmers, because you'll pull
Yeah.
and you'll be like, "Where the hell is it?" And then all of a sudden, it just bursts out of the floor underneath you.
Yeah, so
Graboid.
that goes a lot to, not just Horizon, but all private servers,
Mhm.
right? With that, so there's kind of the jokes around it. Hey, you pull one, it goes to the abyss, right? And then hopefully it doesn't pull. Garland Citadel would be one. You're up top with the beetles there, right? And it just drops down the floor, right? I'm sure Shozo can tell you that one was probably a nightmare. But at the same time, you kind of like get used to it. You know what I mean? Like you kind of, but yeah, at first you're like, where did it go? And then there's like 6 beetles, and you're like, oh dear God,
Yeah. As a puller, you kind of get used to it because you know which ones, when you pull them, are going to do it.
Right.
So you know which
Well,
ones are going to drop through the floor.
The second part. Oh, sorry about that.
Please go ahead.
The second part of that is on the client side, because the server is so slow at sending information and to the client. Like our server tick rate, and it's even a little bit faster than retail's tick rate. But it's all designed because the client can't handle that amount of data. There is a significant amount of interpolation, and if you're not familiar with what interpolation is, it's okay, I was here, but now I've just received an update that I'm over here, and I need to figure out how to move there smoothly. So that interpolation is also subject to that collision detection. So if your interpolated values between updates are even a little bit off as well, it'll fall through as well. So it is a sadistic problem.
Sounds like Franken magic. As
We
soon
don't
as you
talk
said
about
bane of
magic.
as soon as you said
We don't
bane of
talk about Frank.
existence,
We don't talk about Frank
everyone
and magic.
smiled. Yeah.
It's funny
Grimace in
on
disguise.
that line. On that line, I was doing the blue mage thing, and I whatever. Anyway, so I was doing a blue mage fight, right? And a couple weeks ago, I was like, "Hey, Frank," I was like, "What's up with this? Like, something with the blue magic?" And he goes, "Oh, let me see your file." So I share a screen with him real quick, and he goes, "Oh yeah, that needs to be xi.magic.something, something that they had rewritten it at some point, and I guess I hadn't rebased or whatever in that timeline." So he's like, I'll do them, and then I'll push them. I was like, all right, cool. So he pushed real quick, did the approval process, had a couple people look at it. We're like, all right, cool, push, right? And then I go, I'm still going through, do my quest or whatever, and I'm testing it out, and it didn't work. And like, it kept blowing up my server, and I'm like, bro, what is this? Turns out there was like 300 other instances for like immunities, like the physical aspect of it, whether it's a physical blue mage spell. And so it's funny, he wrote like, blue mage fixes or something like that. And then immediately on top of it, it was like even more blue mage fixes. And it was just like, or even more magic fixes or something like that. It's just,
I mean, feel free to expand upon the blue mage stuff. No, I mean,
I'm sure we'll get there.
No,
I'm sure we'll get there.
Please do.
I'm sure
He
we'll
looks
get there.
so interested, and then you were like, even more blue mage fixes, and he looks so disappointed. Like, no,
Yeah,
my
leave
baby.
blue mage alone. Let it be good. Make sure that it has a mighty guard, and I can get my afterglow Tizona. I'm ready.
Yeah,
Let's do
perfect.
it.
We can do by name players, can't we? Can't we?
Please send me all of the good stuff. I want it.
No,
I need you to nerf
I didn't say what it
everything from-
was, but we can do
Damage
by
equals
name.
damage divided by 2.
You know
Divide
what?
by
I'll
two.
take my chances. I'll take my chances.
Just roll the dice.
Mhm.
That's gambling, baby.
I'd hate to come on this podcast and say, this dickhead that we had on the podcast the other day.
Classic.
So I've got a kind of generic question to kind of help the viewer, the listener, kind of get in the same headspace of all this stuff. And so, like, I know that Horizon has like some kind of proprietary black box for part of the server, but also there's like the open source portion of the code that people work on. And when I say ask a question like the Blue Mage stuff you were just working on, like, are we talking about the proprietary? Are we talking about the open source? Are we talking about something in between? And because obviously I don't want people to be revealing like things about what Horizon wants to keep secret, but at the same time we're talking openly about changes to the code of the server.
Yeah.
So
So almost all of those things, our baseline is always going to start with retail accurate, right? So when we start our code base off of whatever Lansam boat is our sort of mothership of code has, and Lansam boat, their goal is to have a retail accurate emulator, and whatever retail looks like now, that's what they want to produce. Under and spawned from that is Air Skyboat, which is that, but at the level 75 era timeline. So late Tau, early Wings of the Goddess sort of zone is where that cutoff is. And the idea is that we just take everything that's 75 era and we just create a module that overrides certain data from Lansam to say, yeah, this was what the crafting recipes look like, and this is how things were calculated at that point. We just override the content. That's the starting point. And like 95+% of Horizon's code matches the retail era, or what we try to go for retail era accuracy to start. And that's not to say that we're always going to stay at retail accuracy, because we have Era Plus, and the whole goal of Era Plus is not, well, let's just redesign everything for the heck of it. It's there was debates over what we wanted to achieve. So that proprietary piece was in place initially for. Remember that feeling you got when you first walked out into Valkyrie Dunes? Like the first time, not the 10,000th time, but the first time you walked out, hey man, this is a really cool place. Like this new zone, things got real hard. Now I have to start partying, and that feeling of adventure that you had to get from exploring. And we wanted to sort of recreate that without changing the game completely, right? So it wasn't, we can't create new zones and stuff like that. So the Era Plus mentality was not centered on necessarily rebalancing and rechanging everything, but it was also a little bit about do things and go find new camps that you can't just go look up on the nearest wiki and say, oh yeah, just go here, and then it plays the game for you. It was go explore and get that feeling again from Era of exploration and discovery. So that piece of the code and minus some of the specific changes that we have to do for administration, is the only thing that's really proprietary. Everything else, when we're coding, when these guys are coding the Blue Mage stuff, it's going to go up to either Air Skyboat if it's 75 specific, or it's going to go all the way to Land Sandboat if it's actually still accurate to retail today. The challenges that we have is getting things to the right location, because there's sometimes debate, especially with the era things. We have old wikis and old references to go by to say, yeah, this is what it looked like in 2010, but all the wikis are showing modern data, and modern retail tells us what's there right now. So it's really hard to say, yeah, this is what era actually looked like. So we have to go by sort of best guess and best research we can find. So yeah, most of it is open source and non-proprietary.
Yeah, so kind of to piggyback that, so when I do my streams, right, and do, that kind of stuff, that is always 100% on ASB or LSB, right? And I have, for me personally, it's like aspirin. Have you guys seen that movie Antitrust? He talks about like aspirin should be free for the world, things like that, like open source thing. I'm a big fan of that, right? So, you mentioned the proprietary thing. There's a lot of good content out there, right? That for one reason or the other, and not knocking whoever, but they don't want to share it, right? So what ends up happening is you get duplication of efforts, right? Going through, building assaults as an example, or whatever system it is, or quests or whatever, right? And you almost have to know somebody that knows somebody to be like, hey, dude, can I look at that? And then, hey, if I give you credit, can I do this? And most of the time, in my experience, I've been like, hey, do you guys have this? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, hey, can I get it? I'll credit you. I'll make the modifications to it needed for the framework that we're running right now, right? And then, everyone will have it. But as Damarus was just saying, the challenge for me doing quests, which I've been kind of doing for, a few months now, is that, we do have to look back at the era timelines versus current timelines, right? So let's look at Red Mage Boots as an example, right? I think it was like you had to go into Crawler's Nest or something like that and and you had to bury your boots for a day, right? So, if you were up at 11:50 and got it, you got them 10 minutes later. If you did it at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you got them the next day when you got off work, right? But it's 1 minute now, right? So the question that I was having and what we ended up doing to solve that was what Damarus said with modules, right? So I wanted everyone to have it. I wanted LSB to have it. I wanted private server over here to have it, you guys to have it, everyone to have it, right? But for us in the 75 era, it was midnight, right? So not only did I have to write the quest, right? And I wrote the quest as current, right? Hey, 1 minute or whatever it was. But on top of that, wrote a module to replace that if we run it, right? If we run said module, it changes it to midnight, right? But our basic code base remains the same, right? So there's no conflicts between, in that instance, LSB and ASB, right? Otherwise, someone would have to go when we're doing, back and forth, which one do we want? Which one's right? So it takes that kind of guesswork out of it. And these are things that you figure out on the fly a lot of the time. And Shozu, I owe a bunch of credit for helping me with that one. I think he's the one that was like, oh no, you need to have it in this specific container to be able to replace it on the fly. So that's kind of in a nutshell, what it is.
So a lot of module based change it like
specifics.
There you go.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about the module system is the way it works is you can turn on and turn off. So if anybody decides, hey, I want to create a 75 era server, and they choose to use Air Skyboat as the platform, they can take and they get all the modules that changes from 75. And if they're like, hey, we want to customize it, but we don't want to use this particular module, they can just turn modules on and off. They're like settings almost, right? So they can and they can take those modules again and customize them further. So if they want to change things completely, they want to undo one and use the actual retail version of it, and want to customize their own again, they don't have to go and reinvent the code. They just have to change or not even change, select the parts of the code that they want to use or not use, and use or not use them.
A good example for that would be home points, right? Home points, to just bounce around or whatever, right? If I want my 75 server, normally wouldn't have them. If I want them, I'd turn it on, right? Or I, wouldn't use that module, I guess. And so it would, in essence, enable them.
You guys should actually,
because that's what it is.
On for Horizon. Just accidentally turn those on for a little while.
No.
So, like, talking
Hard
about
pass.
covering that, two questions came to mind just real quick, right? So I watch Hookstar streams. He knows I do because I go in there and talk smack to him while he's streaming.
Oh, yeah.
And something I found extremely interesting as someone who has no knowledge of coding or anything like that as far as this goes, right? Is you were working on assaults and you were trying to figure out the issue with, I don't remember which one it was, but it was rubble crumbling. And me and you were sitting in your chat talking about it, and you were talking about how like objects that move are actually NPCs with health bars. And I thought that was like super interesting. I don't know why that was interesting to me, but that's something that most people that play probably would not know.
Yeah, so and Shozokui, they may be able to speak better at this, right? Every thing has an ID, essentially, right? So when you walk up to something and it says, NPC name, whatever, Argus or, Bison Buffalo, whatever it is, that corresponds to a database ID, right? They shift, which also is a pain in the ass, right? Anyway, in the database, their behavior. Go ahead, Chozo. You can probably answer it. Okay.
Well, I was just going to interject with, have you ever been walking through Ottergon and turned on like All-Seeing Eye? I know that's kind of a bad add-on, so to speak, but
no, none of us have ever cheated. Answer is no. We wouldn't use something like that in retail. Never.
Good answer. Okay, I
played on console. I had none.
Well, if you were to do that, what you would see is that every cutscene NPC, every object that happens like during an event, everything is on the map 100% of the time. Like things don't spawn in, spawn out. Like they just receive updates to be turned visible or invisible, and then while you're in the event, like they turn it visible and it follows they're called motion schedules. They're basically just fancy animation terms, but yeah. Hook, you can keep going there. Sorry.
Oh, you threw motion schedules at me and now I forgot what I was saying. No, but so every NPC has an ID, right? And in the database there's numbers, right? Which when you first look at it, you're like, what am I doing? Like, honestly, like, what does this 1 mean? Where can I enumerate that at? What does this 8 mean? But once you start working with it, you figure it out, right? So doorways, as an example, in Whitegate, right? That assault we were working on, right? Those doors, if you want to call them doors, right? It's an NPC, right? Now, its behavior, right, is dictated by either a Lua file or, in this instance, most predominantly or most likely the SQL file where, hey, this door is always open. You know what I mean? So if it's scripted, right? So you have to, let's say you have to have a key item to open the door, right? In that specific NPC, in that zone, it'll have the Lua file associated with it. And then when you on trigger, when you touch it, right, it will respond with something. Do you have key item? Can it open the door? If then else, type scenario, right? Whereas if they're not coded, like assaults, right, for the most part, you have to go in after the fact, right, and walk up to this door because the zone is set up where they're going to default to whatever the dump was, whoever got the file, right, or whoever went through and got the dumps for it, right? So they're set up and they're probably not right. And it's no fault to anyone. They just haven't been done yet, right? So you have to go through and be like, okay, in this specific map, because there's, to my understanding, there's different maps for assaults for some of them, right? This door might be open, this door might not be open this time, you know, so on and so forth, right? So you have to go say, okay, am I in instance 1, 2, or 3, right? If I'm in instance 1, which doors are open? If I'm in instance 2, these doors, 3 doors, right? So what that then requires, I have to go on retail and try to capture zone 1, 2, and 3 to see which doors are open, right? So depending on how many people are doing that assault, which nowadays is nana, right? I get 1 all the time, right? So in an effort to be as accurate as possible, we're not necessarily able to do it first time go, right? And a lot of trials and error with that too. You know, I was working on one of the penguin ones, right? And they're separated, like the penguin matching one, they're separated by 2 different rooms, right? And the males, I think, are a little taller, right? So in the SQL file, I have to go in and actually change a digit in there to make them just appear a little bit bigger, you know, because it's something you just can't, it's not a different DAT file for them, unfortunately, right? They're all penguins, you know, but you have to just change their model size a little bit. And it's not as intuitive as one might think, right? So a lot of trials and errors, and, you know, I'm sure, you know, Cal had mentioned, you know, and gratefully he comes on the streams and, you know, we chop it up for a while. But a lot of it's just me, like, thinking through things, like, how does this even work? Like, I have no idea, you know, and we're trying to piece it together. And I think that's true. You know, everyone has their varying level of expertise, right? You know, obviously I'm the bottom of the totem pole of these 2 guys. But you know, the collaboration that, you know, that our team has is remarkable. It's just awesome. I mean, I can ask dumb questions like I did earlier today, you know, and yeah, to get a chuckle, but within seconds, I had 2 answers that were not mean, right? They were pointed and, hey, this is how you do it. And I'm like, yes, that is exactly how you do it. And I feel like an idiot because I asked the question.
I would love to hear about that dumb question because you brought it up twice now.
Okay, so here it was. I was outside mowing my lawn today, right? And I was thinking about, okay, yeah, we did the Horizon Adventure Assistance Program.
Okay, yes.
Right? So I was thinking in my head while I'm mowing my grass,
Did we announce that yet? Can I talk about this?
That's exactly
I was like,
I can smell it from over here. Yeah, I knew
that was on the last Loghouse meeting, right? So I was thinking, I was like, if we want to do rewards or whatever, how we're going to play it, how do I, you know, anticipate, you know, giving these rewards out or whatever? And I was like, retail has a direct treasure pool thing, Vice. Like, so if I go into BCNM to help someone out, right? And, you know, how do I give them a specific item from a table as an example, right? And I was like, oh wait, retail has a direct, you know, drop, right? So you normally go into BCNMs, it's treasure pool and, you know, you lot, whatever. And I was like, how do I do that? I was like, they have a system for that somehow. And I'm like, huh. And then so I got done, you know, grabbed a shower, whatever. And then I was like, hey, do we have a system in place? Like I literally said, I should probably know this, but do we have a system in place, right, that allows direct drops to players? The answer is obviously yes, right? And then it was like player add item, and then NPC utility give item. And I was like, oh my God, I use that like all the time. Every quest, every single quest I've ever done has that in it. And I was like, I feel like an idiot, but thank you, gentlemen, for for giving me, you know, not giving me shit right out of the gate. They did later, but you know what I mean? And
now, so you know what?
Yeah.
Now everybody's gonna know. Now everybody who
I'm gonna
watches
own up
this
to
will
that
know
one.
that you deserve the shit.
Yeah, he was mowing the grass.
Well, I think it's these middle school kids, man. I'm a middle school teacher now since I retired from the Army, right? And it's brutal. It's like my start of my 3rd or 4th week. These kids are making me dumb, man. It's so hard.
Right now in the house, I got a 15-year-old, 14-year-old, and a 12-year-old. So it's like
Dude,
I'm ruining their language. I'm like, for real? They're like, shut up. Shut up.
I said no cap in class the other day, and I got a huge pop.
And so I'm at the other end of the spectrum. So my two kids are 25 and 21.
Right.
So they're like old, they're a little bit past that age. But I've got two grandkids, and they're 7 and 5, and like they're still learning all this stuff. So I can still influence them, and I'm going to teach them how to be developers at some point. And they're going to hate me for it, or at least their parents are going to hate me for it. I don't really care.
That's the beauty about being a grandparent, right? You can give them back.
Yeah.
Here you go.
And here's mom and
Yeah,
dad.
here's sugar. Here you
Time
go.
to go home. Time to go home.
Good luck
Before-
getting to bed tonight. Remember when we were 13? Yeah, I do. My two oldest just graduated high school, so I get it.
Speaking of fun, last time we were all on together, we were playing Jeopardy. Just wanted to remind you guys of the ass whooping that you handed to the Level Sync crew. But I wanted to bring that up because while that live broadcast was going on, Eric was posting answers to the questions that were being asked, but there was one person beating him, and it was Xenofire. Xenofire was putting the answers to these questions. And speaking of Xenofire, he has a question for you guys. And let me, go. You can say "uh-oh" because can we expect the arcane flower pots working as intended anytime soon? There was talk about them not working as they should, and due to obtaining them and price, they're a very coveted gardening pot.
Sorry, guys, I gotta go.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah. So what I will say is this: that is on my to-do list. It's on my bucket list. No pun intended. I do want to get them working. The only known effect that the arcane flower pots I've had, I think, is that they give you some percentage of an opportunity to have double the ore output production. Right now, it's not doing anything, and it is on my to-do list. But I've been doing enough things with gardening over the last month and a half, 2 months now, that I haven't looked at anything else. But it is on a. Once I get that gardening piece stabilized, then I can go back and look at some of the underpinning code that does other things, like when it calculates rewards, if the pot it's coming from is an arcane flower pot, here's a, I don't know, whatever, 10, 20, 15% chance that you can have double the ore output if the output is some type of ore. Yes, it is something we want to do. No, I haven't done it yet. And I'm not going to give any promises on when it's going to happen, but I will tell you that it's on my list of things I'm actively looking at right now. So, if I can get it working sooner rather than later, it will be something that I'm going to have to find a way to do in a, I'll say, Horizon proprietary way, because I don't have the data to show the retail accurate use of arcane flower pots. We know it's something like that, but again, as we were saying earlier, this has to be researched and accurate before it can go to LSB. And I don't have the cycles to do that, and I don't garden on retail. I hate gardening with a passion.
And he's the one doing it.
Which, by the way, I wrote the fishing contest, and I've never fished on retail. I had fishing level 4 before I wrote that, and I had to go through and upgrade my fishing to level 20 or something to get the stat generators. There's an NPC you can talk to produce all your fishing stats for you. I coded that. I had to invest in fishing so I could write this shit, and I hated myself for that entire period of time. But anyway, yes.
We were chuckling.
Oh, I know you all were, you bunch of fuckers. But yeah, I'm well aware. So yeah, I will tell you that arcane flower pots are going to be a thing. I just can't promise you when, but it is on my radar.
LTL got me hyped about gardening literally after the last episode's recording. I hopped off. I bought some flower pots, not arcane because I can't afford them. I'm a clamor. And then immediately planted and realized 2 days later I'm going to New Orleans and they all died. So I'm off to a wonderful start. LTL, you did get me hyped about gardening on there.
Yeah,
so.
Apparently you weren't the only one. After the stream, Ayame hit me up and she was like, I'm really thinking about starting gardening now. And I'm like, sweet, I'm glad I got people interested. But the problem is, if you start gardening right now, right, Damarus, there's a chance that it's just gonna wilt instantly, and you could
it's fixed.
Yourself. Oh, it's fixed. Okay, good.
That
because
is fixed.
I planted 10 new cuttings today, and I just remembered now that it could be fucked up, and I was like, well, please tell me I'm not screwed.
No, you should be fine. Now, that said, like Shozo was saying earlier, that we come across these weird edge cases once in a while, and gardening has been one of them. So here's the skinny on what's been happening. One of the things, and so you're going to get let in on a little secret, and I'm only going to tell you this because it's in the ASB and LSB code base, and we have not done anything proprietary on Horizon with this. The way gardening works on retail is depending on what's in your pot and how long it's been, you have to examine it on a roughly daily basis. That's not actually the case on LSB's gardening implementation, because the gardening implementation does not track when you examine pots, only that you've examined pots. So it's very binary. It's either examined or it's not. And what happens is there's a series of stages that it goes through along the way, and every time it goes to a new stage, it resets the examine flag back to nope, not examined, and then you have to do it before the stage expires again. But if you don't know how long each stage is, then you want to check it roughly on a daily basis, and it generally has been fitting. And I think this has been the problem with why plants have been wilting, because some stages lasts less than 24 hours. So if you don't check it within that cycle and it updates, all of a sudden you find yourself, I examined it just last night, but now it's dead. And I think that's been why. So I've changed a couple of things proprietarily to effectively say you have a 24-hour window. As long as the next stage doesn't exceed 24 hours or something to that effect, then it won't clear the examine flag. So that's your little inside secret on gardening. What is also being fixed now, though, is until I figure out how the server actually tracks each pot to say when it was examined last, there's nothing else we can do with it. In the database, flower pots are just stored as another item in the inventory, and they don't have a unique identifier, which means I can't just say find Icy's 10 pots and do these things with it, because I have to go and identify it by the character ID, the location, in other words, the MogSafe or MogSafe 2. It's easy on Horizon because we only have MogSafe 1, and the slot that it's in. So which of the 1 to 80 in your inventory is it sitting in right now? And that stays static within your MogSafe. So I can identify it that way. But as soon as you move it, if I was to log your data, I would lose the identifier as to when, with the spot was examined at this time last. So there's no way right now to embed it. So I don't.
Can I actually comment about that? Because I assumed that there was unique identifiers to the pots in some way, because I had it glitch one day where my flower pots, roughly 5 or 6 of them, the name was like brass pot, and then some sort of, it didn't look exactly like hex code, but there was definitely some sort of name some sort of maybe 3 or 4 digits / letters. I wish I'd taken a screenshot or some video or something, but one day it glitched and my flower pots all had almost looked like extra data on the end of them.
I saw that.
I wish
too.
you had taken a screenshot of that too.
You saw it too, LTL?
That's happened to me as well. Yeah, where it's like you pop in, you look at your flower pots, and it'll just say, because I have all brass pots as well. It would say brass pot, and then it would have a series of numbers after it, and each one of them was different because it ended with a different number of the alphabet.
That is extremely interesting. And that's the first I've heard of this one.
You see the wheels going right now.
It did happen.
Yeah.
It really did happen.
I'm looking up brass pot right now just to go look at the
Each one was
different table.
Each one was different. They weren't all the same ID. Each one had a different
mine
one
all
different digit. Yeah.
I won't say a resolution on this one because it could be a number of different things. But if that's happening in the name that shows in your list, there's probably a buffer overflow happening somewhere. If you get too technical on it, but I would say. So there's not an ID in the database for each individual flower pot. There's an ID code for a brass flower pot, and all brass flower pots are, I think, ID 216 or something like that. And that's fine. They're all that. When the system is running, so bit of a technical piece. When the server is running, it's a file called XI map, and every group of zones is running its own instance of XI map. When it's running in memory, it has every player's flower pots on that server. If they go into their mog house, it creates a pointer and an object in the cache memory for that flower pot. And that it's not a unique ID, but a unique address somewhere in memory on the server's computer. That could be what's coming through. It could be some other piece of there isn't an extra piece of data that looks like hex that stores all the flower pots information. Why it's showing in the client is a little bit strange. So there is some things, but none of that is actually a unique identifier that would let me pull the data from a database and find that specific flower pot.
So if somebody comes across it listening to this podcast, maybe take a screenshot and share.
Yeah, and post a GM or send a GM ticket, and they'll tag me, and I'll cry a little bit in the corner in the fetal position, but then I'll probably try and fix it.
So just 217 was correct. That is the brass flower pot.
Damn.
In context, there are right now 29,696 items listed So good job. That was awesome.
One of those is Gil, so
Yeah. Well, that's why I added the last one is Gil.
It's only because
Which is what? Which one's Gil?
65,
You know which
535.
There it is.
The value of
It's the last one. That's easy.
unsigned integer. The maximum value of an unsigned integer. We had this conversation on stream today. I don't remember what the context was, but
That's a really odd conversation.
Binary, right?
dude, what were we doing today? Like Waking the Beast. Yeah, and I was in like the first group. We tried to split because we had like more than 18. We tried to split into two groups to get two kills for the LS. And the first group won, and then the second group was going in. So I'm just sitting there, and we were chatting about whatever, and that's why the maximum value of an unsigned integer came up.
16-bit unsigned integer.
16-bit. We actually did come up with that too, because anyway, check the VOD if anybody's actually interested in that further.
And if anybody knows what I'm talking about, then please put in a dev application and
come hang out with us.
But you may or may not have a GM ticket in for this guy's flower pots. I happened to plant a full grip of saplings like a week and change ago, and they went straight from I'm not hungry to fed with no feed. So
I'm resolving that one today.
Awesome.
So yeah, just for awareness on that one, I did discover I can simply there's a string of 28 bits of or 28 bytes of data that gets attached to the flower pot in the database, and I've discovered how I can go through directly in the database and update the 8th character from the left and change the second crystal feed, or I can go to the 6th character from left and change the first crystal feed without updating the stage, without changing whatever. And it will, as long as you haven't harvested the items, it will just carry on as if you fed that crystal normally. So
Watch over
I'll
here
say
complaining
this.
about free light ore. What the fuck, dude?
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm not giving anybody free light ore.
No, I'm saying no. Like he's got if he planted them and it's like double no feed, and it's at the end of its cycle now. It's like potential for free light ore.
Yeah. I was hoping for a different ore, which is why I put in the GM ticket.
Oh, okay. All right, I get it.
Fair enough.
Poor baby.
Yeah. So what I have been doing today is going in, and anybody who has a ticket in and it comes over that no feed skipped feeding cycle, I've just been applying the crystal as a thank you for your patience.
Appreciate it.
MVP right there.
No, it's only because I'm lazy, and the alternative is I have to go through and find all 125 people that submitted a ticket and take crystals out of their inventory, and I just ain't got time for that. So have a crystal, courtesy of me.
Should have taken the MVP part, not the lazy part. You're good.
I'm also honest.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm hoping everything is resolved now. And again, it's one of those edge cases might still resurface, and gardening could all of a sudden take a massive dump again. I'm hoping not. It's not a perfect system. And again, this goes back to we were taking a lot of guesswork at how the client handles things, and we're taking a little bit of guesswork at how the server handles things. We're really, really close, but we may be off a little bit, right? We know the data structure, but we don't necessarily know the logic and processes behind. We can just do it through observation. So this is one of those things where pretty sure it worked. And the guy that coded the gardening, by the way, super intelligent guy, JMC Morris. Friggin' brilliant coder. And this is, again, just one of those edge cases that came up. So this isn't a slam, oh yeah, he wrote shit code. No, his code is excellent. But this was just one little edge case that came up out of it that we didn't really consider previously.
Yeah, and that's the testing thing. I know for me doing quests, right? And this is always one of those weird things. It's like, when I'm running through doing whatever testing, right? It's just me, right? It's just me. And I might have, a second log on or a third log on, to test something, right? But it is just, you get these weird things like someone will have, it'll break the server if someone has a light crystal mixed with the colostrum, and they try to trade this guy but have this quest flagged, and they're purple. And it blows the server up, and you're like, what? How is that even possible? And this is weird stuff, and then it gets replicated, and you're like, how would I possibly have tested for that? You know what I mean? And it's just, there's a lot that goes into this, guys. That's all I'm saying. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, that little chain there blew me away. I blame the Dragoon, though, since he was purple.
You always
But
wait at Dragoon.
I've got another community question that, oddly enough, is for Damarus again. And it's on the other subject that you love so dearly, which is fishing.
Fishing.
So, Discount Killer asks, will Inside the Belly quest be expanded beyond retail? Would be cool to see them add more fish to the list of what can be traded with the possibility of getting an item.
I didn't code Inside the Belly. So I can't actually answer that one. There's a
So
couple of-
it's
You got it?
yeah. Well, I don't want to step on your toes, but it's the lick and opal silk and the guru whatever for the saber shoot, right? Is that what we're talking about?
Well,
I mean, come on, guys. Like,
Ibisu, right? I know what you're saying. Okay, I've heard of this.
My fishing 0, so
I think DK's initial question was just like, has anybody ever thought about expanding on what exists that you can get from Inside the Belly
Yeah.
oh,
to
okay.
add like future
Okay.
stuff to it and stuff like that?
So again,
Yeah.
I haven't done the Inside the Belly quest, and I remember fixing a bug with it like a year or so ago pre-launch, but that was it. So it's possible from a technical standpoint, and as Hookstar said earlier, right? We have this little code that we can put in Lua player : give item, or NPC util : or .give item, whatever the hell it is. We can throw that in the code. We can give a player anything from within a quest. Some of the quests though require client interaction, like the actual game client to do certain things, and the client is non-negotiable. All we can do is tell it, do command number 74, and it just does command 74, and we can't tell it what 74 is. We just say do command 74. So as long as the quest doesn't require anything like that, it is technically possible. Now, how and what we actually, if we can do anything we want with it, will we? I don't know. We'd have to probably bash some staff heads together and find out what exactly we want to do. And I'm probably not really able to answer that one without having somebody named Eric in the room.
Yeah.
play it safe.
I think it was more so him just wanting to touch on if it's possible, because once you achieve your Ebisu and all that, it kind of becomes it's
It's
useless.
a trivial
like,
point at that
yeah.
thing, right? Yeah.
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 And I mean, I can honestly say that one of the visions that we have for horizontal progression later down the road, when we get past the Wings of the Goddess, what would have been beyond 75 cap, and we start doing things at 75 all the way to current endgame, we're going to have to look at horizontal progression for a lot of things, and not just for your weapons and armor, but for things like fishing and crafting and all that kind of stuff too. So part of the reason I'm also hesitant to answer that is I don't want to take away from what the balance team is looking at to say what makes sense from a progression to go from an Ibisu to an Ibisu +1. Why can't I just skip? Like, why would I bother going for a Lushang's first, for example, and then doing an Ibisu? Why not? Or why skip it? Maybe you have to do something where you have to do things all along the path. I don't know. So there's a whole lot of ways to crack that nut. Some of them could be a lot of fun. Some of them might not be so much. So when the balance team weighs in on it, it's easier to have an answer.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I think he was just hopeful.
Shozo, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't foresee there being any type of scenario where you could turn in a moat carp and possibly get an opal silk. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's.
I'm gonna plead the fifth on this one, just in general of what we might have in the plans for it. But yeah, I mean, as Damarus said, completely possible. We rely heavily on our balance team and our people who actively play the game to tell us what needs doing.
You guys ended up adding things to the pool of clamming, and now everybody thinks they could just get new shit added to their stuff. So I mean,
So I did clamming. I adjusted some stuff based off balance team suggestions. I don't know, probably 6 months ago with clamming. There you go. And I think I inadvertently put something in the wrong spot, right? So you would never get one. But that was recently discovered and fixed. So
Interesting.
Fixed? Well, it's obviously not the Rock. You put the Rock in there, claiming's dead. So it's not the Rock. But other than that, doesn't
I
matter.
have no idea what you're talking about.
The clip looks concerned.
No, if you put that Rock in there, I'm never claiming again.
The guy from wrestling, like the Rock.
Yeah, Dwayne.
Dwayne the Rock
Dwayne the Rock
Johnson.
Johnson.
He's on the.
Hey,
he's on the beat.
he made a comeback on SmackDown last night.
We're
He's
still
gonna-
going to
heard
need
about
a
that.
bigger clamming net.
He's gonna
Plus,
show
there's a
up,
jungle nearby.
drop the people's elbow on you while you're clamming. Like, is that what you're hoping for? I don't
You smell what he's
understand.
cooking.
And you
Yeah,
smell
yeah.
what he's. It's not clams.
It's-
The Mandy comes out. That's your claiming incident. The Mandy comes out, and it's actually we redo the dat, and it's the Rock.
Rock.
Oh, so
Comes down, gets your bucket.
You get the rock bottom and a
Live
people's
bees.
elbow. It'd be awesome.
if Consume Live Bees is watching this feed, you just got your new task. I need a Mandragora of the Rock.
There you go. It'll be there tomorrow. Watch.
What do they call that? A
We're
clamming
gonna hop on
event?
to Jeff Gen.
Yeah, claiming incident.
A
is what
clamming
they call it.
incident
Yeah.
between Mandragora, the Rock Johnson.
Instead of the chat, as it jumps into your bucket, all it says is, "Do you smell?" And then he comes running in. Sorry,
God.
sorry. I was trying to go one episode, not talk about clamming, but
There's gonna be some copyright infringement coming on here, and yeah.
you just distort him. He'll be all right. No one will know. It'll just be a little inside joke for people that watch the podcast. Most people will be like, "What the fuck is that?"
You see what the Rock is drawing.
I've got a question I'd really like to touch on while I have, three devs who've done some back end work here. And I know, Shozo, you've, in relation to Dynamis, I know you've done some work in this department. So instancing. We have, say, multiple instances of the VCNM at Gideus, but I often hear it's very hard, if not impossible, to add more instances. What is it about the way the game works that is preventing that from happening?
So I'll start with a very basic outline of how the server is structured in general. As you guys are aware, some of our zones exist on their own. Like, they have their own process. Everything on that zone is its own copy of that. And the way that we connect that and stitch that data together is through something called RPC, which is remote process call. We send messages between these processes to synchronize the data on them. So with that being said, implementing new instances, specifically with Dynamis, means that we would end up needing to create additional layers of RPC, which also means that, let's say you had, or actually, I'll give you a real example. I mean, we had 5 or 6 very large link shells when Dynamis started opening up that would want to do the same zone. So you have maximum capacity. That's all those people. It's all the mobs that have to be updated. Like, introducing new instances and the RPC that goes along with that, it would then begin to be like very intensive. So we would start seeing an uptick in lag. We would start seeing retail problems. It's kind of an interesting subject that Zach Too Good has been working on for a while. Like, he's got a lot of the groundwork there to have a good system. We recently moved to what we're calling the world server, but the world server is like a post office. Like, all the letters go there, they get sorted, they get sent where they need to go. So that world server makes it a lot more feasible to do instancing.
So like, we've got, like, say, Gideus, which has, I'm going to guess a number, like 4 instances for people to be doing the BCNM. What prevents us from just saying, now there's 5? Is it a client issue?
So the way instances work is not true instancing. You can actually see this on retail too if you use like a free cam mod or something. every quote unquote instance is the exact same zone. There's just like some have 3 copies of the battleground. Some some have 5, or let's say you get sent to jail. I think there's like 16 or something there. It's all the same zone. So
So it's that they're in the same zone, but just like super far away from each other, so you
Yes,
can't see the
exactly.
battle
Yes.
text.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, yeah.
That's
There's
that
a
fight
good-
you were talking about, where it chased your ass back to the mainland
Yeah.
when you exited, right?
Yeah, that was when we killed Oryu the first
Yep.
time. Yeah, like we killed Oryu, and well, we actually didn't. Everybody died. Well, and I was the last guy alive, and I fucking hit the crystal to leave. And as Oryu or Bahamut, it was Bahamut version 1. Sorry, I'm leaving. Like I'm the last one alive. I'm leaving the zone, the crystal. I click the crystal. Bahamut's following me. Doesn't get a hit off on me before I hit the crystal. I leave the zone, and Bahamut just keeps fucking going, like
Yeah.
off the island, and everyone else in the party but me got the win
Yeah,
because he left the island.
that's an unfortunate one.
There's cases of those, not instances but multiple battlefields within a zone, on almost all of the BCNMs. And there's other examples too. And Hookstar alluded to this earlier when he was talking about like with Assault's Battlefield Instance 1. One of the ones I dealt with when I was trying to figure out the Diabolos fight. So you know the floor tiles that fall on the
Yeah.
Diabolos fight, right?
Mhm.
What I didn't know is, so you know how you can go into the fight on retail and you have different floor patterns.
Right.
Like there's exactly 3 patterns that can appear on the floor. And what happens is if you and I'll do it on a stream some night if I get a chance to stream again, you can actually see, you can wall hack out from one of the battlefields and you can see the other 3 or the other 2 battlefields, and they'll be empty, completely empty. You can run over to them, you can walk in, and you can see that there's nothing there. But the floor tiles, the 3 different patterns of the floor tiles correspond to instance 1, instance 2, and instance 3 within the zone. So when you register, when you first person in your party goes up to the Shrouded Maw and clicks on the thing and says, I'm going to do Waking Dreams, it randomly, or in retail, it randomly selects one of the 3 instances and says, go there. And that's how you end up with one of 3 possible random floor tile patterns. The problem we have with all the way up to LSB is the way LSB works is when it assigns, because most instances are identical. You go to Gideus or whatever, you get 3 different instances, but it's the same thing, just 3 different copies of it.
Mhm.
Yeah. It just starts you in instance 1. It tries to load
we
you in
go.
number 1. Yeah, there you go. You can see it there on
Yeah.
Shozo's mapping, right? So that's the overlay of whatever zone that is. I think that's Shrouded Maw.
That's Balga Dias.
Oh, Balgas Dias, yeah. So you've got 3
Oh,
different
I got a
copies.
crazy story about that one.
So the Diabolos fight, it doesn't randomize you. It automatically goes, okay, we're going to try to put you in instance 1. Oh, it's free? Okay, you're going instance 1. Oh, instance 1's busy, we're going to move you to instance 2. So that's why one of the problems we have on all private servers, almost, is that every time you go to do the Diabolos fight, you get the same floor tile. I actually coded for this one a randomizer, so it picks one of the 3 battlefields, only for the Diabolos fight.
Is that recent? Because I've been in there a few times and I use, the seeing through stuff.
Yeah,
I'm having an
Film
absolute
mode?
brain fart right now. Film mode. Thank
Film
you
mode,
so
yeah.
much. And it's always the same pattern, is what I've always seen.
Yeah. A few months ago, after I did that coding, they actually updated the Battlefield framework completely, so that it changes how everything gets instanced. They didn't put a randomizer into it, but I haven't gone back in to reapply the randomizer,
Oh, okay.
because it's just a little bit lower in priority, and I'm not as familiar with the new framework, so I haven't changed anything with it.
Is that one that's been updated to the new framework?
Probably not, because nobody ever seems to want to touch the Shrouded Maw except for me. So, and I didn't.
Hey, dude, I did. Well, what was it? The E&Ms. What was the snow? Hooligan Range or something like that?
Hooligan, you can have it.
Yeah, no, I did it. That was brutal, man.
Okay. I don't miss stepping away from Battlefield development.
I inadvertently went back into it. I was trying to get out of it.
I'll tell you what. I'll go code some E&Ms. You can fix gardening.
All right, we'll work something out.
I thought they froze to fake DC.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It wouldn't be the first time.
Oh my god! I did it the other night.
Hey, we've all pulled that plug out once or twice, and
Yeah, yeah.
this party sucks. I'm out of here.
Rage quit.
That's hysterical. So one of the things that's come up, and I know I've talked a lot about it on previous streams. I know you guys have watched them, but seems to be somewhat fixed now. Is the black screen issue that a lot of people were facing? So what was that like? Did you guys actually fix that? Like, what was? I mean, because it was a launcher issue. Like that seems weird. Like, how did we
No.
get that fixed?
No, it goes so beyond that. Life is hard when we talk about black screens.
And we still don't
Um,
even know.
Well, we know exactly what it is, but so I'll give you kind of an idea of how retail communication works. Whenever you're connected to the server, every packet you receive will the client basically keeps count, like that. They do that in order to kind of fake like a required response connection, because if you know anything about UDP communications, they're completely unreliable. They can when your client sends something, there's no guarantee whatsoever that it reaches the server. There's no guarantee you'll get a response. None of that. So the way these guys went about solving that problem was implementing something called a sync counter. So every time a certain type of packet is sent, every time a packet is sent at all, the client keeps track. It's like, okay, I've sent this packet one time, didn't get a response yet. Let's increment it, send it again. So whenever you zone, this is particularly nasty because that sync counter has to match up. There are hard requirements in how data is decrypted and hash checked. And if the hash of the response does not match because you have an incorrect sync, the client just sits there. Like it does. It's like I'm done. I will receive no more emails from you. Nothing. Complete ghosted. But so that's actually something that none of the private servers knew about. It's a completely unimplemented thing for the code base going all the way back. So it's particularly hard to debug because let's say you have a single process server going on. The issue will never happen because you'll never drop a packet. So when you go to zone, your client sends out, okay, I'm at this zone line. Then it sends out, okay, I want to log into the next zone. Send me the IP address of the next zone and all this stuff so I can connect to it. If you don't get that packet back, you'll never zone. So at that point, if that packet is dropped and the server doesn't know, I'm going to increment the sync value of that response, then you become out of sync and the client can no longer receive any communication of any kind from the server because it's a known bad connection and you're going to DC. So go ahead.
Elaborating on that, and I don't mean to take over LTL's subject, but so if that's what's causing the black screens, basically failure to send packet, and then it basically goes, okay, timed out because it's no longer a valid connection. What was causing the abyss screens, as they've been coined, where you zone, but everything you can see all the players around you, but everything's black?
Okay, so I can hit that one too. That's a retail problem too, and I'll tell you exactly why. Let's say most people have that issue when they're using the add-ons for HD assets, and so this client is built against a 32-bit Visual Studio 6 or VC6 runtime. So that means the maximum amount of memory that your client can allocate at any given time, I think is 4K, or not 4K, but 4 gigs. So to fix that, what everybody's been doing and what we've done recently with rolling out the new bootloader is applying a large address aware patch, which means that that the client can see more memory. Because what's happening is your client ran out of memory loading the assets, and it's literally never going to retry and load them. So you're just bonked until you reload, and that can be made worse through add-ons and all that kind of stuff. But with the large address aware patch, it shouldn't be really an issue anymore, and we ship that out by default now. So
I
That's
wasn't
great.
I wasn't as unlucky as LTL was on this because that haunted you for months, didn't it?
Yeah. Every time I warped from it seemed like every time I was in an alliance, we had done something and we were finished at the end of it. Like either like if it was Dynamis, for example, when we warped out of Dynamis, sometimes I would black screen, and then if I hadn't black screen there, it was guaranteed that when I was D2'd back, I would get black screen.
yeah.
Is that the same kind of situation where you're talking about the changes in the packets that you were talking about, where you're hovering over a city? Like I did it with Sandoria and Juno twice, where I was hovering over the city as soon as I zoned out, either on a chocobo or not. And the only way to get is the unstuck or the teleport if you have a warp cauldron on you. It's not the black screen. You can see everything. It's just you're a mile up.
Yeah. So with transitioning between zones, I mean we've had a number of issues since the launch of Horizon.
Got
The
a lot
most
better. I haven't had one of those in 3 months, like 4
Yeah.
months minimum.
Most of those issues went away once we finally implemented proper sync tracking with packets. So with that, one of the primary reasons of why, because sometimes let's say you black screened while zoning, I mean you would end up at the map's origin 000. Because basically what happens is there's a whole sequence of packets while zoning. And in those sequence of packets, like if you're not able to finish zoning, like sometimes you would lose the actual position data that you're supposed to have. So like I said, almost all of those have been completely fixed by this point, but I mean it's still theoretically possible to happen.
The other thing that was happening with those was when the packets would come out of sync. So when you zone from one zone line to another, every zone line is registered in a database, and it has XYZ coordinates of where to dump you on the other side of that zone line. But it depends on where you're coming from. So when you zone into East Ronfaure, for example, and you're coming from South Sandoria, there's a thing that says, okay, coming from South Sandoria to East Ronfaure at that zone line, use these XYZ coordinates. What would happen was it would sometimes register your previous zone as the same zone you were in. So you zone into East Ronfaure from East Ronfaure, and we take the XYZ coordinates from East Ronfaure and dump them back in to your new location. So instead of zoning up at XYZ 1, 2, 3, you zone in at 4, 5, 6. Which is the coordinates that you should have zoned into going back in East Ronfaure, or back into South Sandoria. So that's somewhere else in the map. So you would either be at 000, as Shozo said, or a point in the right point in the wrong map, which is even more fun.
Yeah, so that explains the Mog House zoning too, where you'd zone out the Mog House and teleport in front of the auction house. It's taking your data from the Mog House and going, this was his coordinates when he was here, and then moving them to...
Can that
So
just
speaking of the
be
Mog House,
a feature,
like
not a bug?
right? The Mog House thing, yeah, that would be great actually. But like I remember early on in the server, and something that was taken away, I'm gonna say taken away from us, and I don't know if it's being worked on or something that'll be fixed. I remember when we first started, if you left your Mog House after you changed your job, you would get the option or the prompt to make that your home point. And that I know, I already knew that was coming.
But that's been gone from us for a long
Mhm.
time. So what gives? Are we fixing that? Is that just like a hopeless cause or what?
I just think no one's actually worked on it since. So it's one when we were trying to figure out before we actually, I say we, Shozo actually found the Shozo in Winter found the packeting issue. We were trying everything to figure out like what was causing not just the black screen but the random locations and blah blah blah. So all the things that we had changed, we just started rolling them back and undoing and fixing and patching. And one of those things was Moghouse exit, and there was something else in there too that related to Moghouse. I don't remember what it was. There was two different things. Oh, it was the Moghouse rent rooms. All of that, we just ripped everything back out until we could finally get a lock on it. But there was so much time that had passed from ripping those things out to solving the syncing issue. We just haven't. We can't just repatch it. We have to recode it. And with all the other content and things, it just hasn't been on the radar. And I don't know if it's something that we've said we're not doing it, or if it's just a matter of we just haven't had anyone take the time to put back in. And I'd be curious, like if that's something that players want. I mean, I'm happy to code it. It's not that hard to do. It just takes a few days to piece it out. I just don't know if it's something that's I don't want to say in the server's purview right now to actually look at. But
mean,
I'm
yeah.
happy to regenerate that.
If we're being honest, like there's crystals close enough to any exit to the Mog House, and especially if you're like worried, like most people post up in Juno, right? So like if you're worried about the Mog House exit, like home point, I mean, you can just walk down the stairs like 20 feet and click the crystal. So it's not a huge deal. It was just like all this talk about it. I kind of knew that these things were related.
Yeah.
I've been in QA for a very, very, very long time. So I kind of figured out that those were related. So I was just curious because it seemed like those two things were related. So
Similar.
Isn't that a cutscene? Isn't it a cutscene ID?
Yeah, anything that asks you to input something is technically an event that fires.
Yeah, so I don't think it would be that. I mean, I can go
It's pretty
capture them
easy to do.
tonight. Yeah.
Oh, we've already got them. We literally just have to rewrite the code for it.
Okay.
It's 50 lines of code.
I'm gonna extensively say, please don't. It's a quality of life improvement. I absolutely hate it when it asks me every single time I leave my log house if I want to set my damn home point there.
100%.
Only supposed to do it after you change your job.
Yes,
but
it's still extremely annoying.
but now
Well,
you
does it
have
ask
to do
you?
it to piss
Does it
Cal
ask
off.
you if you do the mock house like the zone? Does it not ask you that, or is it just
It's
the
only when you change your job.
Yeah.
It should only do it when you change your
Okay.
job. It
Okay,
sees
but
the
it still
job
allows
change
you
and it doesn't.
to. You should still be able to select a zone if you've completed that quest, right?
Yes,
that's
yes, you
complete
can
quest.
still
Okay,
do
all right,
that.
all right.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah.
I'm terrified of it being implemented and black screens return. So
Well, that's the other reason we haven't really done it too. Is maybe
If it ain't broke,
Oh,
don't
that's
fix it.
I've probably the entire time the server's been up and running, I've probably gotten 5 black screens in total. I haven't had any problems with it. It's just fucking with LTL, so I'm okay with it.
I fucked
It
with
just
Cal
comes
pretty
down
hard.
to-
It got my ass too. He
fucked with
infected
Cal.
me.
Yeah, I did. After it fixed for me, it started fucking up for Cal, and he couldn't fucking get out of it. It was crazy.
Oh, it happened to me too, and then I was.
So before we move on to like a different subject, I have one more thing that popped in my head when Shozo was explaining the reasoning behind the abyss screens, right? And that's ghosting. Everybody's been ghosted in a party. And I assume it's basically the same kind of area, basically lost
Not
a
quite.
packet from your character.
this is bigger.
This is a much bigger server core issue. So I've alluded to all of our zones are usually on their own process, right? And we need this mail dispatch central to sync them up, right? So it is. I mean, that's a fairly recent advent of that working completely properly. And ghosting is being looked into by some of the smartest people on the entire private server community. So I mean, I can't really say that a fix is imminent, but I know that it's something that was found to be more prevalent in multi-server or multi-process environments. So it's being worked on.
Yeah, and this includes not just parties, but parties, alliances, link shell messaging, all of the things that should be central, and the 2-cent version of why this is problematic is there are, I don't know, 40, 50, I forget how many concurrent instances, threads running of the map server, and each one of those has a different set of zones on it. So there's one that has Dynamis Juno and Relu Gardens, and another one that has, you know, whatever. So every one of those, if all of us are in an alliance together, the 7 of us in this room, and we have 2 different parties between us, but we're all in 7 different zones on 7 different instances, our running instance has to keep a record of all 7 of our things, and they have to match exactly. So if something happens and I transfer the party leader to Icy and it doesn't read properly on the other end, everything gets broken, because now, you know, LTL thinks that I'm the party leader, but I've handed it off, but somehow DA is the one that received the party leader. Like, there's a million things that go wrong because it's not centralized. So the new world server, once these guys that are working on it implement it, the world server will actually control or host all of the data for your party, and the map servers don't have to do it.
When we talk about this world server idea, does this have anything to do with the transition from Linux to Windows? I was reading Eric's
Not at
comments. Okay.
Yeah, that
This is a core. This is a core function. Like,
yeah.
So
that right now, the
operating
biggest problem
system.
we have, the biggest problem we're having with running Linux is whenever there's a server crash, Windows produces a really, I can't believe I'm saying this because it's Windows. Windows produces a really nice crash dump that we can look at and go, oh yeah, here's the error, here's the line of code it's in, blah, blah, blah. We have a running joke on the staff Discord that says optimized out. We even have a little thing, a little
Bitmoji.
yeah, emoji for it. So what happens is on Linux, when it produces this crash dump, we're able to run the dump file in a debugger and say, okay, well, what was going on? But what happens is, like, let's say my character goes to cast Thunder 4, and Thunder 4, whatever reason, causes a problem. I go into the frame that shows where I'm casting Thunder 4, and I go to see, okay, it says a character, a player is casting Thunder 4, and I go, well, which player is it? And it says optimized out. Well, I need to know whose player it is that caused this crash. Sorry, optimized out. Linux just optimizes everything. So the whole blessing of Linux being a really efficient operating system is actually a curse as a debugger, because it runs things so smoothly that the way it handles the passage of data within its memory space means that it's really hard to track. So all these crashes that happen, like, there's only a few people that can actually read the dump logs, and even then we can't get very much out of it. So Windows, yeah, as much as I hate to say it, we got to go there.
Wow.
I was going to say the same thing.
Don't ever put me on the record other than this of having said I like Windows. But
Oh, this is now all over the internet, and we're gonna
Yeah.
make a new meme. And it's gonna be your picture that you had from the stream, and it's just gonna say under it, "I love Windows."
Yeah.
God, that's it.
Well, he's doing the aliens guy like hand thing like this. So you
Not
just
saying
do
it's
this.
Windows, but it's
Windows is
Windows.
better. Spelled.
Windows.
You know, if we don't
Better
make it,
than
Eric
Linux.
will when this releases, right?
It's okay. I'm sure it'll be out there in 5 minutes.
I know
Yeah.
with the development of treasures that's being worked on the back end and everything, I was wondering if there's any plans to introduce maybe custom storylines, missions, anything specific that, I don't know how much you could say, but anything that you're kind of working on that is unique for the treasure
So-
side of things.
I'll take that one. So at the top level, I can't say anything specific, but I will say some interesting developments have been made on being able to extend the client a little bit further than what we currently have. I will say that almost everything that happens within the game world is an event, and previously we had very little ability to edit events, like how events flow, creating custom cutscenes, all that kind of stuff. Like that's been an outstanding issue in private server development for a very long time, and it's for a good reason, because let's say a cutscene plays. I mean, you're constantly getting packet opcode updates for what's supposed to be happening on screen. Like the server is spamming you with them. So to customize those, you then need to fully understand the data structures associated to about 200 opcodes. And what opcodes are is they represent something that happens on the client, like whether it's show an NPC, run a camera animation along a spline, anything like that. So being able to customize those has been a far-fetched dream for a while, just because the amount of work. But we're a community developer, Atamos. I'm sure you guys have heard of him 100 times. He's one of the smartest guys that I've ever talked to. He's made a lot of progress on reversing and making those structures available. So that then allows us to make tooling around those. So it's not a far-fetched dream anymore, but I will say it's down the line sometime.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I didn't want you to overstep toes about anything special coming out, but at the same time, if we can get a little possibility of expansion on there, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Yep.
So in line with that, I have a question specifically for Hook, because I know he's been working on it, and like I said, I watch his streams whenever he does. What's the process like doing like all the capturing and stuff for TOAU for retail, and then implementing it to Horizon Standard and like the customization that you guys want to achieve with it? Like, what's that process involve?
That's a really good question. Thank you. So it's involved, short. So essentially, what I try to do is I try to get onto retail, and like I said earlier, there's just so many different variables that can happen, and so I want to go talk to this NPC. He gives me this quest, and it's not necessarily always this linear thing, right? So a lot of times I'll find myself going and talking to the NPC 6 times, right? Just spamming him with it, and then going talking to his neighbor, right? And then all these other ones. For the most part, on retail, you can go onto the wiki and say, okay, I got to talk to this dude. I got to talk to this dude. And then boom, 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 right? And then every now and then you'll see the optional, right, on the wikis, right? Like optional, talk to this dude, right? So at what point do we make that optional or not, right? So I have to go talk to him, right? And I have that, I forgive me, I do not know who wrote it, but the capture suite simplifies that incredibly, right? It will literally just tell me, it'll decipher the packets and tell me what code, what parameters, if there's event updates, what those are. So I can then take that once I've captured everything, right? And talk to everybody that I could possibly do, trade them off the wall things, and if they give me a return, right? Because most times you're just gonna, like today, I was doing the a generous general, the goblin cough hat, right? I've been wanting to, dude. I've been wanting to code these 4. I've been wanting to code these 4 quests for like 3 or 4 years. I swear to God, and I could never get a generous general to work, right? And it was on zone into the mines.
The mines, yeah.
And I could, for whatever reason, yeah, I could never get it to work. And I finally found where I was making my mistake at, because I had the right cutscene idea, I had all this other thing. And it was something so trivial, right? Long story short, when you do a zone in, or when you go like on trigger, right? And say, I'm at progress 1, right? I've accepted the quest, I've moved on, right? And I go talk to the next NPC. It's if progress equals 1, then do this, right? And then it says, progress events, and then the event ID, let's say 74 in this case, right? I was always putting that because that's the standard code for it, right? There's a few changes, event, progress event, important ones, things like that, right? But on zone in, it's just CS number. And for the longest time, I never got that. And I finally figured it out, and I was like, oh, okay. So this is going to, I'm sending this to LSB. right? So everyone can have them, because I'm so happy about this. Because that hat is so cool. I had it in retail, and it was so awesome. Little goblin hat, just running around.
I kind of half mentioned this quest specifically, but just not by name on, I think, the Frank episode. I forget, there was a question that came up about adding new quests or something, or quests that were in retail. And it was like, oh, I think that one was like 07 or something, because I wanted the hat. I specifically wanted the hat. So
Yeah, no,
I'm glad
so
you're working on that.
did,
That's awesome.
I did do a moral manifest and submitted that. I think it was Topaz or Topaz Plus, one of the two at the times, but it wasn't in the same framework, right? So we have a different structure that we use now. So I'm going back through. So again, when I mentioned earlier, I reached out to someone from a different server that had it somewhat, right? And asked them, hey, heard through the grapevine, you have this. Can I take a peek at it? I'm gonna, here are my plans, whatever. I'm gonna give you credit. And he was like, dude, that's awesome. You're giving me credit for it. Here they are. And he gave them to me. You know what I mean? So there's some things that are different with it. I believe they're still using DSP, right, as their core stuff. So I had to go through and make all those modifications, things like that. And we're testing it. I literally have it open right here. I'm looking at it. So
pictures.
But
I'm
yeah,
kidding,
okay.
I'm kidding.
I'll turn it around. Yeah. But what I'm doing right now is I didn't stream it today, and I should have, but that's what I was doing. I was literally going up, and I probably killed 30 buffaloes before I got a buffalo hide, because there was none in the auction house on Ragnarok, right? So and then they drop they're 2% drop rate. So I'm sitting there with like bearskin ninja, right, trying to farm these things, and I walk away to go mow my grass, as it were, and a buffalo killed me. It took like 40 minutes, but he killed me. But anyway, so just to kind of wrap it all up, it's LSB requires us to have, and again, rightfully so, all of the information, right? And I want players to have the right information. I want them to be able to go to that optional NPC and talk to them and get that extra dialogue, because it's story, right? It's not just, I think what a lot of people forget or lose sight of is I just want to get this, that instant gratification thing. I just want to go get this, right? But if you peel back, some of these stories are absolutely incredible, between the cutscenes, the little mini storylines into it that sometimes play into other larger cutscenes, and if you don't have that option to go and get it, right, then you miss out on it, right? So for me personally, that's what I've been doing for the last 6-7 months, is looking at those quests. Now I literally have a spreadsheet and a pad of paper, right, and I'm writing all this stuff down from tonight, right? It's all in there. I went through and pulled every single quest, right? Because we have a quest folder, a quest Lua, right? It's a Noom all the way down. Is this one an interaction framework? Yes or no? No? Okay. I'll go capture it, and I'll code it, and I'll submit it. I think I started in Windy because I didn't want to do Windy. So I got Windy mostly done. There's a couple outliers, things that are kind of out of era, right, that I'm not going to do just yet because it doesn't make sense, right? But then it's going back and testing it and making sure that the desired results are achieved, right? Now, with that said, the question comes up, well, do we do it for LSB? They want it now, like current, right? But the other half of me, right, is Horizon and ASB, the era stuff, right? So that's when the modules came into play. Okay, in order for this to be a 1-to-1 from ASB to LSB, right, to not have merge conflicts all the time, right, because ASB is midnight, this says 60 seconds, right? Create the modules, which aren't, I'm pretty sure modules aren't captured, that doesn't get looked at, right? Okay, so yeah, so modules can come and go if you want them, right? So, but that's not going to cause conflicts. And then just testing it. I mean, I think a majority of my time, it doesn't take me too long to write it out, right? But it's going through and being like, okay, I have my, my 2 screens up here. I'm like, all right, I need to go talk to this person. I go talk to them, then I trade them this, right? And I'm like, okay. And then I have my my Heidi SQL, and I can see, okay, it progressed me right, or no, it didn't, or whatever it is, right? And then so I'll fix that, and then move on to the next step, move on to the next step, and then I'll delete it and run it entirely again, and then I'll delete it and run it entirely again. So I'll go through this quest 7, 8, 9, 10 times, and still have someone, hey, take a look at this for me before I push it to get reviewed. You know what I mean? Just because like I really want it to be as accurate as possible to be able to tell the story. Final Fantasy XI has done an amazing job over its 20 plus years of being able to tell a really good story. And if I don't capture that, right, and it's just point A to point B, you know, in this linear fashion, players are losing out on storyline.
That's intimidating for somebody who's always been interested in coding. Hearing that, wow.
It's not bad. It's really not bad once you, like
Kinda
when I
like
first looked at
gardening. Once you, it's scary to get
Yeah.
started, but once you get going and you see the fruits of your labor, it starts.
Well, I
hitting you
remember
right.
the first time I looked at the interaction framework, right? So what we're calling it, and I was like, "What the hell is this? Like, I can't even read this. What is this?" Right? And I probably picked the most egregious interaction framework quested possible, right? And it had all these weird variables and tables and all this other crazy stuff on it. I'm like, "What is this?" Right? But slowly but surely, and you know, the guys here have helped me. Abdiah's helped me a ton. You know, there's still some folks that are like, "Ah, that's interaction framework. I'm not touching it." You know, I ain't gonna look at it. You know, but again, that goes back to, you know, everyone has their niche things that they like to do, right? And for the developers, for me personally, I probably speak for the other two. Maybe not. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's the challenge, right? I don't play this game really anymore, right? The last time I logged on to Horizon was the night we did the Jeopardy episode, and I came up there and hung out in the Relude Gardens with you guys for 10 minutes. I haven't logged on since, right? But my joy in this game comes from being able to provide you guys your joy, if that makes sense.
Got Santa Claus over here.
Well,
The
not
huge
that.
truth,
But
though, like
He's so
a lot of us don't
altruistic.
play anymore.
We
I-
camp M&Ms and do Dynamis runs for our joy, getting a new piece of gear. You guys
Yeah.
are the ones making sure it
Right.
works and codes right and see the joy in our face when we get that piece of gear.
My
That's
highest
why-
character is level 42.
Yeah, I think mine's 44, maybe.
Dev
Yeah.
party.
Yeah. Hey, don't worry. I'm level
Shubi's
50.
around 40.
There you go.
Yeah.
You guys can
Joe's
sync.
is- Joe's 50.
There
There,
we
you go. Hey,
So,
we got a
We'll
dev
have
party
a
to go,
dev
boys,
party
tonight
tonight, we'll stream
afterwards.
there you go.
I have to
got-
go. I have to go do the limit breaks. That's why I stopped playing.
I didn't even get that far.
Fair.
It's fine. I'll
Um,
go kill the stuff for the mold and everything for you. It's fine.
But no, but going back to, you know, what I said earlier, maybe it was when we were, you know, just chopping it up beforehand. Your guys' podcast, right, specifically, right? It brings so many people together, you know, in your last week's episode about the gardening and, you know, all the Helm stuff, right? It was absolutely phenomenal because, one, you were sharing information, right? And you were communicating it to other folks, you know, whether or not they wanted to do it, you know, it was on them, right? But you were sharing things. And it is absolutely fabulous because, I mean, I joined the team late, or it was before launch, but later than most, right? And from what I understand, you know, expectations were blown out of the water. I mean, just far and beyond what anyone possibly could imagine. You know, and it's from folks like you guys doing this stuff and, you know, dedicating time and your resources to it. And it's great because we can see the fruits of our labor in your guys' face every other Monday. You know what I mean? And it's great. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox.
Don't get me emotional like that. Come on now, we're not going to do this. But you said sharing, and I'd have a question from the community about sharing. When are we going to see the ability for the hardcore mode cosmetics to be transferable from alts to the same account?
Who asked that question, TA?
Oh, let me see. Kuro?
Was that a
So-
thing?
Yeah, I
Hardcore
don't-
hardcore status is or being able to keep a hardcore character around long enough to get the more cool cosmetics is kind of a unique thing. I don't know that there's any plans to make cosmetics transferable, but again, I'm going to have to defer to other staff members like Frank and Eric for a full, what's up on that. I'm just this is my opinion here.
Yeah, I don't think any of us were involved in the coding of that one or the direction. So I think that was one of the pretty unique things that was added in. So yeah, but I think Shows was right. Like I don't know if there was ever an intent to be able to transfer it because of, I mean, the definition of a hardcore character, right? So I don't know.
I've never
No.
made it out of East Ronfar or West Ronfar on a hardcore character. I'm 0-3, so this definitely doesn't apply to me. But
I
I can
died
see
in
the
town, dude.
I can
I
see the
lost
icon
mine.
being like a predominant thing for them, and the gear being used on another character. So when that other character is actually showing off that gear, they know, oh shit, they got a 75 hardcore as well. So I understand where the question's coming from. Where'd you lose yours?
Yeah.
So I was in town.
I got kind of messed up on this one because there was a bug early on in the server's history. I know everybody's shocked here. I can see your expressions, very shocked. There was a bug, but I lost mine zoning aggro, and when there was a very unique case where if you would zone back in, that mob would just come fuck you up constantly, and there was nothing you could do to actually get off of the aggro table. So
Oh, that was
and
Guskin Mines. Like, if you guys remember the first few days, you had to play. You had like 20 people just waiting at the zone, right? At Guskin Mines to go get the Magic and Skull, right? And then like you'd go in, and then some idiot would just like run by, and you're like, no, stop! And they'd run in, just get walloped, and then all of them would come running back, and then we're like, oh great, now we got to wait another 10 more minutes.
Everybody zones out to the front of the mines, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was after we had implemented at least one patch to it, but it was particularly evil because when let's say you completely zoned out of that zone, like for instance for me, I was in South Gustaberg and I zoned a quad av because it was rough. And then I mean I was in North Gustaberg for probably 2-3 minutes. That's plenty of time. I come back, and then I'm making my way to where Leaping Lizzie spawns, because I'm gonna go fight some lizards instead. And then all of a sudden, I catch out of the corner of my eye after I'm very far away from the zone line, multiple big old quad abs ready to take their pound of flesh.
And they put it on you, didn't they?
Wrong neighborhood,
Yes.
motherfucker.
Cool. So we've been talking a lot. I want to thank you guys again for coming out. This has been awesome. We're just gonna have a few more questions here, and then we'll get to the end of this amazingness. But the one question that we all wanted to know the answer to was, we were curious. Like, so you guys have done a lot of work, right? You've implemented a lot of things that probably were your ideas, may not have been your ideas, but implemented them successfully. There's a lot more hits than misses on Horizon. So for each of you, I guess, like, what's your proudest achievement, like, or milestone that you guys have achieved? I mean, it's easy to say that it's X, Y, and Z, but as a team you can say that. But like for you guys individually, what would you say is like your proudest achievement or milestone working on the server?
Wow, that's a big one. So I can probably tackle that in a couple of different ways. Just as a developer, I can't believe I'm say this. As a developer, I think the fishing contest for me was a milestone because that was the first thing that I coded that I really had to put an entire system in place from start to finish because there was nothing behind that. So it required all of the core hooks, it required the Lua hooks, it required some database management, it required an entire new system, it required new packaging. like I had to run everything from captures and all that stuff. So it wasn't just a quest. It was an entire system in the back end. And what that did for me was show me that despite what I think of actually the fishing itself, I think when you asked before the stream what the thing is I like doing, it's systems engineering. So it's not the deep back end things that Shozo's working on, like pathing and packeting. It's the game level systems, and I really, really enjoy that. So now I'm targeting things like there is zero work done on Expeditionary Force. There is zero work done on Moblin Maze Mongers. And I want to build those systems. It's not that I don't care about the quests. I do, and I will code those and I will fix bugs along the way. But I have my head wrapped now around entire systems being incorporated into the game that no private servers have. And that fishing contest, as much as it wasn't the best coded, it's very rough around the edges because it was my first one. But that was, I think, for me, the milestone in just my own developmental or code development progression.
Nice.
You want to go ahead, Shozo?
Sure. I'll give two versions of this answer. The first version is the thing that I like most because I like weird things. So I like a month ago, 2 months ago, something. I found out that multi-slot lock styles do not work on any private server, and I fixed that because I am a big proponent of the tracksuit pants, and eventually I mean, I said it as soon as I fixed it. How about we get some staff pants here, fella?
Not like the Nasomi track pants, huh? Maybe make you run a little bit faster?
No,
Oh,
nothing,
that's
nothing
sweet.
like that.
Oh, that's
No,
okay.
I just want to be able to lock style tracksuit pants again because my retail character always has them on. That and the Shadow Lord shirt. That was our calling card in our link style. But
That kind of limits it. I think I may know.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people know. But I guess the real version of that is probably the black screening stuff. Like that was the thing that I worked harder than like anything else I've ever done in my life to research because it required understanding exactly what the client was doing, and that requires reverse engineering it, and then reverse engineering the MD5 and Blowfish algorithms on the client side to understand, like, okay, well, why are these packets not getting through? So it was a lot of very frustrating work where you would think things would work, but then just iterative. But getting to the other side of it, I think, was the cool thing.
Nice.
That took you a long period of time, and you got your ass kicked in the comment sections the entire way of people complaining about it, but you stuck to it, and I thank you because the end result speaks for itself. LTL can speak for it. That's what matters. If the LTL's happy, we're happy here.
Exactly.
So I think early on we were all told and kind of came to a general consensus: hey, we need to stay out of the general Discord channel, like, because you'll end up taking things too personally. You know what I mean? And it's like start looking sideways, like, hey man, like we're doing this, But anyway, does my go?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So I also have two things. One, and Shozo and Damarus, I'm gonna clown on myself again, right? Do you guys remember when Evil Weapons were doing a weapon skill and crashing server? You guys remember that?
Yep.
It was yeah. I know you remember it. So
Early on, I think so.
it was very early on. I got the idea, right? Again, so I was attempting to convert all the BCNMs over to Morris's framework. And when you call something by name, right? So there's a couple different ways you can call something, right, for an item. right? So if they're enumerated in the items.lua, you can just say xi.item.goblincoif, right? And it will automatically look at that file, and get you the ID, and you're good, right? So I had just started retirement leave, right? So I was sitting at home, wasn't doing anything. I was like, you know what? I was like, I am going to redo, because, okay, so let me back up. The items ID file is not, now you guys
I
know
know where you're going.
Yeah. So the items ID, it was only what people had put in, right? So the Goblin Coif, Beast Coin, Gold Beast Coin. But so, I mentioned earlier, there's 29,000 items, right? So what I did is I was like, you know what? I'm going to show these guys that, I have the technical expertise to copy something to Excel and then copy it back into Lua, right? That was my thought process, right? So I take all 29,000, throw it in a spreadsheet, right? Format it all up, get it right, boom, 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 boom. I'm like, hey, there's 29,000 changes to this, whatever. Like, no one will ever have to go look up the item ID, go to items.lua, input it, find the right spot, make sure all the formatting's right. I'm going to do it. So I probably spent 3 or 4 days, going through, scrubbing these 29,000 items, right? So as it were, there was a lot of things going on. The crashes were happening, things like that. So it gets pushed, it gets submitted and merged. And then we did an update, and then the server crashes. Like evil weapons, So that was one of the earliest all hands on decks we could get, right? So me being newer member to the team, I hop up in the voice and I'm just listening, because all these dudes are way smarter than I am. And they're going through it. They're like, why are the evil weapons, whatever? I'm like, all right, well, let's revert, increment backwards, right? So they do this when it's still crashing, revert this one still crashing, revert this one still crashing. They revert items.lua and the crashes stop. And I'm sitting there like with my headphones on in my office chair, like, oh my God. I just took 3 hours of everyone's time, and it was the items.lua file. And then I was like thinking to myself, like, how is that even possible? It has nothing to do, the items.lua has nothing to do with the mob weapon skill. That's an entirely different table, entirely different altogether. And anyway, they're like, oh, yeah. No, it's items.lua for sure. Who did this? And I was like, oh my God. That was 100% me. And I'm on the mic like, my bad. You know what I mean? Like, I'll go back through and I'll fix it and whatever. Long story short, there was like little special characters, the mounts specifically. They had like the little music symbols to them, right? And I didn't take those out. So I think it was either Frank or Crit were like, hey, dude, don't take it so seriously. You're not a full dev until you crash the server. And I was like, all right. So that was the biggest lesson that I took away, right, from that. So that was awesome. But the real thing that I think I've been most proud of so far from what I've done is I've gone through and for the advanced job quests and all the artifact quests, I've converted all of them over to the interaction framework. There were some early instances where people were getting locked out of getting sub jobs, or not sub jobs, but advanced jobs because they were again on this weird quest that somehow interrupted with this other one. But it was because how the format was. If an NPC, Corilla, Halver, as an example, they are a focal point of so many different quests. So I went through painstakingly, went through all the jobs on retail, captured all of them, leveled them all to 50 or 60, I guess, and did all the quests. And then got those pushed in. So I haven't heard of any issues with getting advanced jobs or artifact gear, the quested stuff. The coffers those are easy enough, right? It's just a single line. But so I think that was my biggest go me. And then maybe this guy up here, I don't know which side it's on,
Oh yeah,
Like,
You got it right the first time.
that side.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Yeah, that's a fun. That's still a work in progress, but again, it's going back to. I don't think LSB is going to take that because he doesn't exist anymore, right? But what my plan is to do is to have. Damarus was talking earlier about a toggle, right? So there's a toggle. It's just XI. You know, if it's true, then run it. If not, then don't, right? But this one's been particularly difficult because he has different paths, right? And the warhorse footprints, right? And Cal got a sneak preview of a little snippet the other day when I was working on for him. So he can share that, you know, if he wants to. But anyway, that one really opened up my ideas for how to do tables, you know, all the points, you know, things like that. So yeah, and then, you know, in a month or so, I'm going to move on to something else and start over from scratch. So,
and people can swing by the stream as well and be able to
Yeah.
kind of poke and play around.
for sure.
Perfect. Well, this has been.
I'll be happy when I don't have to look at gardening anymore. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just waiting on those pots to be working, you know.
Well, yeah. So Hook had his story about the items that were crashing the server. I've got the gardening snafu. By the way, did you see my post about what happened and why the gardening thing got skipped?
I didn't. No, I missed it.
This dumbass right here. When I was fixing the wilting issues, I moved a part of the code around that basically says once the crystal has been fed to the pot, just progress it on to the next stage and consider it as having been examined. But the way it works is there's an enumeration that says the crystal type, and it starts with crystal none, which would be 0, and then 1 is fire, and blah blah up to 8 being dark. And I wrote, if the crystal is greater than or equal to none, or less than or equal to dark, then progress. And then I went, why did I include greater than or equal to none? Because what that meant was, as soon as it hits that stage, if there's no crystal, progress. Yeah. So I was in the middle of Germany, and I was reading code on my phone. And I'm trying, and I've seen all these tickets coming. I'm reading this on my phone, and I'm going, and I saw that greater than or equal to sign. And it was 2 o'clock in the morning. All the guys in the room were sleeping, and I went, "You fucking idiot!" And the guys woke up and were like, "What's wrong?" Nothing. Just shut up and go to bed. I'm pissed off. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's little things like that. You know what I mean? Like a greater than sign. You know, or like, you know, I don't even want to talk about null pointers. You know what I mean? Like it just.
Fix more of those.
We've actually gotten to the point where now we've done this every stream. Every one of our podcasts we've talked about now Glitch Fest. And now might be the best Glitch Fest we've ever had. Because we have 3 people directly here that can be able to kind of either talk about it or be able to share their Glitch Fest as well. So I'm going to ask the guests, do you have any glitches that you've come across recently, even though you haven't loaded up a game, that you'd like to be able to talk about first?
Recently?
If not, then I'm pretty sure some of the other members.
Or at any point, just something that, you know, while you were deving, something ridiculous happened, you know, and something that you might not share in another, you know, situation.
No, I definitely have one. I was fixing a bug report, and this was on previous server. This wasn't on Horizon. But this was one of those early things that I screwed up on and I learned from. And it was at the point I was doing 2 things at once. I had fixed 2 bugs. One of them was Diabolos' nightmare not working properly. And I'm talking about both the avatar Diabolos, the prime avatar, casting nightmare on your party and putting you to sleep and still doing damage and not waking you up, as well as the summoner's pet Diabolos, not putting mobs to sleep properly, but you can still damage a sleeping mob and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so I fixed that. And there was some logic in whether or not something should wake up, and whether when you do certain like invisibility and sneak wear off, blah, blah, blah. And at the same time, and I can't remember the name of the ability, but there's camouflage that the Rangers have, and there's something else that has to do, I don't remember the ability, depending on how you're aligned with a mob when you take your shot. Anyway, I had coded those two things at the same time on two different pull requests, and I didn't actually consider that the two of them would ever look at the same piece of code somewhere along the way, and they did. And when the server came back up live, because I never tested everything together, I just did each one individually. When the server came up
Send
live,
it.
yeah, I had I tested one and I tested two, but I didn't test one and two.
Decoy
when the server
shot.
came live,
Sorry,
yeah,
it just came to mind.
yeah, I think that was it. That was it. I think it was decoy shot. There was like people with no rangers were able to use the ability, and like Diabolos was just like putting people to sleep. Like everything got so gong showed, and I went, "What the hell?" And they had to go in and completely fix my logic because there was like two of the lines of logic interacted with someone with each other when they got merged together, and they completely broke everything. And like people were like able to use decoy shot, and it wouldn't take off sneak and invis or something like that, and it was just like, oh god, I'm gonna die. That was I think the first like major incident that I imposed on a server where I was like, oh fuck, exactly as Hook was saying earlier, like, oh, I'm gonna get fired on day one.
We got to see the other side of a glitch fest.
Yeah.
Not just us seeing it, but like what happened on the coding side of it as well.
Yeah, for me, the items.lua was a big one. Like, but that was a positive learning experience, right? And granted, luckily it only took a couple hours, but I took a lot away from that, and I took away that our community is awesome. Like the group of devs, and they were all like, Damarus hit me up, was like, "Hey, dude, it happens to everybody." Frank hit me up, "Hey, dude, it happens to everybody. I've done it 20 times," he said. You know what I mean?
Frank does it every PR he puts in, though.
Yeah, something. Yeah. I love Frank. Like, there's some stuff we were talking about balance team earlier, right? And I don't know, last week or whatever, 2 weeks ago, something like that. There was some BCNM changes on something, but it was for every BCNM, right? And we were talking, and he's like, "All right, I'm going to start from the bottom of the list, and I'm going to start from the top." And I'm like, "All right." So I get through like Bogus Diaz or whatever, right? And that's like 12 BCNMs, and I'm like, "Dude, I'm not doing this. Like, I can't do this right now." You know what I mean? Like, go through each one of them individually. And I was like, you know what? Let's just give it to the balance team, and send it and give it to the balance team. Let them figure it out, right? And obviously not, but no. But my biggest one, I think, minus the items.lua, again, referencing back to the artifact stuff, right? The artifact quests. I think it was Paladin shoes, right? Which arguably is the best. I think it's just shield skill plus 10 on those, right? So that they're like the bee's knees, right? And I did the quest and everything was, but it got PR'd, it got merged, it was in the update, everything was good, it'd been checked by everybody, whatever. And there was something, I misspelled something, right? And what it did was it just caused the entire cutscenes to loop back, and you couldn't turn it in, and it was just loop. And I'm like, I did this right. Like, I don't know what happened. Like, I did it 30 times on my local before I shipped it. Problem was, and Damarus helped me on this, when I started, I was doing coding in Notepad++, not Visual Studio, right? Not Visual Studio Code. And on top of that, I had every bug I wanted to fix. I downloaded a new repository, built the server, right? And that was my quote branch, right? Now it's a lot more smooth. I have 3 repositories, right? ASB, LSB, and Horizon, and that's it. And then we got it worked out, but it took me forever. But yeah, but I was so proud about that Paladin one because that was the first one I did, and I was like, oh man, this is awesome. Like, it's good. And then I come back from work and I get like 30 DMs or whatever, and it's like, bro, you got to fix your Paladin thing. It's fucked. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Something about the revival route getting traded. I think that's what it was. I had revival route written, like XI had items at revival route, and it was like sprig of or something. I don't know. It was something weird, but
Shozo,
so
where the
I
hell
casually.
are you showing us? What are you showing us there on your stream there, Shozo? What is this place
Yeah,
that you're at?
I was
Like,
gonna
what was
ask,
that
you have a
town
glitch.
you were zooming? What's going on here? What is this?
So
He just says,
This is Glitch Fest, and you're showing something. I don't know what it is. What is it?
No, I mean, I've never seen
This
any of this
is
zone before. What
this
is this place?
this is an early development map that is still in the client that was never put to use. There are a number of zones like this. Some of them were used in the original marketing materials for the game. Like before the actual zones that they were shooting in were ready. Like they just created like temporary zones in very initial release game or very initial release marketing materials is what they use those for. But this one specifically,
Not a character selection.
no one knows.
Does it have a name, or is it just like map
No.
001 or something?
Yeah, so this is so hidden in the client that you have to specifically be in like rooting through files to find it because it is not mapped to a zone ID. It doesn't have a name, which is interesting because every file in the client is mapped through the F table, which is a giant index or dictionary of every item, model, or asset in the game. I find this map particularly cool because it has a train.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really cool. So, like, just out of curiosity, and I know we're on to Glitch Fest, but like looking at this, if you wanted to, not saying that you're going to or that you've worked on it, if you wanted to, could you potentially make this an actual zone?
So there is a problem with that. In the actual game client, this zone has no collisions. It is separated. Like this interior here is a completely separate file, map file from everything out here. I get why. Everything out here is very big. They have not written any, or like there's no lighting information for it. So when you zone in this, it's just anything that's immediately around your character is all you can see. You can't see off into the distance or anything. You can't move anywhere unless you're no clipping. It's very, you can't really access it. If our tooling were better and we were able to add collision and add some of these missing items, yes, we could. But I just wanted to kind of fly around it here because this is one of my favorite things that I've ever found in the client.
This is super
Because
cool. Like, I don't think people have ever seen this. I know I've never seen this. Never seen
I've
it
never
in a
seen this.
video.
I've never seen it either.
Like, this is
New to me.
really cool.
The glitch fest
Very
is this
short-
wasn't ever implemented. That's what
That's
the
the
glitch
glitch.
is.
There is a short section in an old Ashen Bubs video where he explores this zone in Gnosis, which is it's not as detailed as this, but
This is
I like it.
beautiful. Beautiful. Wow. Holy
Mhm.
crap. Like, first view, people, of like, unless you watch an old Ashen Bubs video, this is awesome.
The
Yeah.
city was shared a little bit around like the forums like a few years back, but I've never seen it actually like
It's like
flown
siege.
around in like this, and I've never seen the zone area.
It's like a defending siege kind of thing. Mounts on the wall and everything, and you got the like armies on the outside, the Roman Empire coming in, something like
Lord
that.
of the Rings style, man. It's
Yeah.
Battle of Helm's Deep style, yeah.
I think some
Sure.
full scale ballista going on here.
And then the train
Yeah.
had like
Oh my gosh,
cannons. on
imagine
it.
like 1K people ballista here.
Yeah.
Definitely have like the airship vibe. You know what I mean? Like the from like 13, I think it was. Was that the one with like
Mhm.
lightning and whatever?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the opening
Yeah.
cinematic, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the train is almost the exact, or almost exactly similar to a few of the train models in Final Fantasy VIII. Like, I know it's kind of hard to make the jump because those are rather low poly, but the theme and style is very, very similar to that game.
We're all
Wow.
like this.
Yeah, we're all, I mean, like, I've been looking into
Like,
it
this is
ever since I
awesome.
started going in there. I'm like, this is amazing.
If there was
I'm
a
gonna put it-
train, it had to lead somewhere.
I'm gonna put a disclaimer:
Yeah.
if you are listening to this, you may want to go look on YouTube at this timestamp
Highly
Yeah.
and
recommended.
and look at this.
Truth.
Mhm.
Make sure you subscribe too.
Slam
There you
that
go.
bell.
You heard it.
I'm gonna keep staring at this, and we got to keep progressing here.
You know, you could also like the video. Just saying.
Yeah, like and
So-
subscribe.
It doesn't cost you anything to hit that like button, so make sure you slam on it so we get a higher rating on YouTube. So,
It helps the algorithm
yeah.
to bring you more
God.
content like this.
All right, other three gentlemen, the regulars, the hosts, Cal, Quetch, LTL. You got any glitches that you've run into this week?
Sounds like Cal's got one.
I haven't. That's what I was gonna say. Since the Promathia one that I brought up last time, nothing.
The only thing I have is I've noticed an increase in, ever since there was the fix, I've noticed that there's been an increase in how kind of fucked up parties get. Like you have
Yes.
to zone to like reset the party list, and like it'll look like somebody's ghosting, but it's not. You just have to zone. Like that's a known thing. Are we working on that?
That is being
So-
worked on.
So a lot of the party stuff has been kind of curtailed into working order, but yes, there are some residual items from moving, because what we did was we rewrote or kind of moved some of the functionality onto the world server to start that process of migrating into that stuff, or into using the world server entirely for it. So you guys are hyper aware, I'm sure, that at first it broke everything and parties were non-functional basically.
Yeah,
But
you
it
couldn't like kick anybody out of a party. You couldn't change leads. Like it would screw up
Yeah.
the entire alliance. Yeah.
yeah,
But most importantly,
So-
we got to talk about DA's blacklist. Like what happened with that?
Yeah. Do you have an answer for that shit?
No,
Well,
I don't.
before we get there, hold on. Before we get there, like I
Okay,
do
yeah,
have
go
an
ahead.
actual bug that happened regarding this party thing. So get ready to put this into Jira, boys. I was doing Eco Warrior Sandy. I think Cal was even there for this one. And we had a full alliance, and I had invited somebody that didn't accept the invite, and they were standing right next to me. And I filled up my party otherwise with other people that I invited. So there was still a pending invite out to one person who hadn't done anything, and he was standing right next to me. So I teleport Hala, my group, who's standing right next to him, and as it's flipping, like as we're loading or right as we're about to load, he accepted the invite, and it kicked offline the entirety of the other two parties.
that is interesting.
It disconnected all of us.
Yeah, all 12 other people got disconnected.
I've seen
disconnect the new one.
I've seen it where if you send an invite, right? Like you're forming an alliance or whatever, and then someone doesn't accept, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go grab so and so, right? And then they come back and accept it, right? You'll have 7, and it throws off the party, like it shifts down some.
Yeah.
I believe for the longest time, the fix for that was just to change the party leader, and then you change the party leader back to yourself. You just change party leader to yourself, right? I know there was some other thing that happened where it certainly wouldn't boot everybody. Like, that's the first time I've heard of that, but yeah, that's a new one.
Yeah, it absolutely kicked all 12 other people offline, and the person who accepted the invite that wasn't part
Ported
of the
with
party
you?
originally ported with us. Yes.
Yeah.
So what I can say, one of these to keep in mind is a lot of these very core functions are handled at the LSB level. LSB itself doesn't run a server. So part of the reason we have a really good relationship with Land Sandboat is because we have a user base of 2,000+ active players at any given time, and all of these types of problems don't come up when even the LSB guys do testing with 2 or 3 people, because that's what they have on their team. So we get to feed them a lot of these challenges. And it was funny, like there was another issue that came up earlier. I won't get into the details of it, but it involves link shell messaging. And there was a crash that happened on one of the servers, and I was going through the crash dump, and Winter Solstice, I pinged him on it, and he immediately was like, I hate you because you pinged me on this issue, because now I can't stop thinking about ways to solve it. So but these things don't get to the LSP devs until a server actually can feed them up, and we have more opportunity to find those problems, which means we have more opportunity to resolve them. So I mean, it's a double-edged sword. We don't want these crashes to happen, but at the same time, it gives us the opportunity to either we introduce or allow the LSP devs to introduce some stability and fixes into the server that they wouldn't find otherwise. So that particular party bug is going to get addressed because Winter and I forget who else, I think Zach, are working on that thing along with a few other things to transfer all of the messaging services up to the world server so that we don't have mismatched broken pointers and we don't have all this data that gets corrupted. It's all in one centralized location.
Gotcha.
Slowly.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
I
I thought you'd be
assume
interested
because
to hear that.
I thought about it after LTL brought up the party thing. I have noticed now every time I go to use the auction house, it'll throw a search failed message quite
Oh,
often.
that's
We
different.
were just
Okay, so search server is a different server than the world. So there are 4 services, well, 3 unique ones, and then the map server that has its own instancing. There's about 40 copies of map running. The other 3 servers, the login server, which obviously handles when you connect to your lobby and all that kind of stuff. The world server, which handles all of the overarching functions. So it's going to handle conquest. It'll handle besieged, like when the mobs are moving, all kind of stuff. It'll handle all that tracking, all of the global functions that are map independent. And then the 4th one is the search server, which handles queries for I think it even handles things like who's online, who's on the auction house, like all of those types of searches are going to be there. So if that happens, usually the search server has gone offline.
Siege confirmed.
but
We knew that was
But
going to
the
happen.
search-
They mentioned that. That wasn't
but-
new
I
news.
know.
Yeah.
the
That's not
cool
news.
thing about the search server is that can be hot reloaded, right?
Yes.
That can just, if it crashes. Whereas and it's pretty quick. It comes up pretty quick. You know what I mean? And then it just goes back through. But
Yeah,
you never have
Shozu
to
would know
reach-
for sure, but I think it's actually on a cron function that will actually just restart it if it's gone
Yeah.
down. I know it used to be on Windows, and it will be on Windows. If it goes down, it'll be run as a service, so it'll just restart. I don't know if it currently is doing that.
I would assume so, since when I do it, it'll do that, and then as soon as I back out and re-enter to search for an item, it fixes itself. So I
fixes
assume
it,
you
yeah.
have it automatically doing it.
Yeah, and search literally takes 1 second to load.
Yeah.
Unlike the map server, which takes forever.
Good Lord. I used to think that when you built it in debug, because I used to build in debug all the time, right? And that took forever. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to do them, prod or whatever. No, it still takes 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Even I got a pretty decent setup, and I'm like, oh Jesus, I'm a local doing 40 threads.
He's
It
like,
takes
nah.
a minute. It takes a minute, fam.
Any more glitches from anybody else? Open floor. I had a. Okay.
I will say that my favorite glitch was when we destroyed Magic entirely, myself and Frank.
Destroyed it entirely,
No
you say?
spellcasting.
Yes. When we first introduced, when the server first came online, there were a number of differences in Magic from how it operates on retail. Retail has a pretty extensive set of rules. Magic is quite complex. There's a lot of exceptions for certain things, and a lot of that information wasn't fully mapped out even for retail. So right as the server was launching, one of our community members ended up going through and doing a huge amount of testing to figure out some of this data. The dude's solid. that's the least I'll say about him. But Frank and I ended up going back through and rewriting a lot of stuff around it to implement those newly found things, as well as fix some of the more treacherous bugs that existed at the time. Bard songs were pretty broken early on, but what we effectively did was make it so that everything resisted at least half all the time. So People weren't real happy about that. But
The good old days.
Play the whole game on hard mode.
Yeah,
all it
for
was.
real.
Again, I didn't make hardcore out of West or East Ronfar. Please don't
Yeah,
make it harder. I'm on
but-
3-3 COP. I get messed with the entire time by the level sync crew. No more difficulty, please.
Well,
Not
let's
right
be
now.
honest. If you rolled a warrior on day one and you went and got that axe, that great axe, you were hitting things for like 300 at level 1, right? So, there were some concessions.
I didn't take
Kinda.
advantage of any exploits.
I
Sorry.
mean, if you got like a clothes pole on day one and went fishing,
Yeah.
that.
Memories on there.
There's a wound there.
All right, so I would
It's
say
a little deep.
that concludes Glitchfest. We have one more thing to be able to discuss, and we brought it up at the end of the last episode. We have a little bit more details, not the finalization on these yet, but Extra Life is the month of October. So the Level Sync crew is going to be basically running both on the Level Sync channel and our own channels, some streams, and we're going to be raising money for a children's miracle network. In fact, we picked, there was only one hospital that we could pick from, and it's actually based in Honolulu. Due to the fires in Maui recently, we chose that as something where we could try to contribute something out towards that direction. I know it's not the exact island. We did.
We looked.
Yeah, we looked. We tried.
We did our best.
We got close. So we're going to be doing it for the month of October. We've actually decided on a 24-hour level sync stream as well. We're each going to be taking a 6-hour rotation. And I believe we decided October 22nd into the 23rd, if I'm not mistaken. So we will be doing a 24-hour stream on the Level Sync Twitch channel. It's Level Sync Podcast. If you haven't followed it already, it's where we actually did our episode 10 live recording. We'll be rotating on there every 6 hours, all the way into the Monday. We're also going to be kind of running maybe our own streams on our own channels, but all of our money is going to be compiled and one donation link to the Children's Miracle Network. More details on this will be coming out shortly, but I wanted to give you guys a little bit more of a heads up. We'll get more times when it comes to that 24-hour stream as well. There's also a few incentives that I'm definitely looking forward to being able to share. Go ahead, Quesh.
I just wanted to clarify the date. So it'd be the 21st into the 22nd. So the Saturday, I think noon is when I'll be starting my shift into noon on Sunday the 22nd. So that's all I wanted to say.
Perfect. We'll have a few incentives in there. I think one of them is I've already created two for myself personally, where I'll shave my head on one of them, and the other one is a non-stop 24-hour clamming stream. Just clamming for 24 damn hours straight. I don't want to do that. I love clamming, but I'm coming up with other ideas, and I'm pretty sure the guys on the podcast will also come up with some ideas to be able to try to encourage to raise money for the kids. But this will be for the month of October is when it'll be starting, October 1st. So we're about halfway through September now. But I definitely wanted to thank the gentlemen for coming on the podcast here, Damarus, Hookstar, and Shozu.
Shozo.
Close. It's close.
Jesus.
So I will say that I have received the full gambit of mispronunciations in my lifetime.
Sorry.
You're close, buddy.
I called Paladins, Paddlins, and Gil Guile for the first 3 years I played this game.
Do you want
Paddling.
to know why? Do you want to know why he calls me Cal? Because he can't say Caladrius.
Yeah.
Delirious.
Listen, I've been on this team now for a year and a half, and still nobody calls me Damarus. It's
Damn.
Damarus.
Damn.
Yeah,
It should be Damarus.
I
But
can't wait till
yeah.
DA calls Shozo
not-
Shinzu. I
Shit.
can't wait until that happens.
It's always damn for me.
I'm trying to do this.
Damn worms.
Oh, gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Thank you.
And from the Level Sync crew, we appreciate you being here. But thank you so much, and we will see you in the Mystery Zone at some point in time when it gets implemented.
Thank you,
Peace
guys.
out, everybody.
Bye, guys. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.